You were taking a piss.
You there?
Can you hear me? I think. Huh.
Beep, beep, well, beep.
Maybe I got the thing actually recording.
I hear
also.
You beeping.
You know, that'd be something else.
But I can't hear your voice.
The screen that way on.
But you were saying your audio is fucked up.
Well, no, I think we're just slightly lagging. I was actually gonna like try to borrow a cigarette off of my neighbor, but then he didn't let me one.
I hear the background noise.
Well, see, now that's the thing. Now,
like
that's
me.
a setting.
Like echo.
That's probably a notification setting here on Discord. And boy, I tell you, I tried to get that one off. This will show you my ignorance, so I'm going to...
Let's see if we can figure out your fucking audio.
Enable unread message badge. Enable it? I put check mark. I guess it's on. Shows a red badge on the app. Oh. It still may be recording, even on this one. I mean, I was hearing you.
But I can't hear you in there. Is that what you mean? Your mic's fucked up?
Oh, well, I was trying to get rid of all those beeping notifications, and then generally I would just hold the laptop a little closer to myself and be hawkishly barking at it when I was going to address you. Because it's a weird mic.
I couldn't hear you at all.
You don't hear me through Discord at all?
Nope.
Huh. Well, I hear you through my end.
It's going beep, beep, beep. Now, are you muting and unmuting?
Well, hang on. Let me. The thing is, I was going to the notification area here for a second.
Well, you can go. Why is it going beep, 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 beep? That's.
I think those are just messages. Sounds. Okay, so I'll turn that one off. How about? I don't want to say deafen. Do you deafen it? Do I want?
Oh, I see.
Okay, so that was just messages I turned off there. So.
Well, I was hearing you beep. Maybe I am hearing you. Say something through the Discord. Let me get your mic up.
Well, I am. You're talking through it. See, you're talking through it, right?
Yeah, I'm talking through it, but I can't hear you in it at all.
Oh, really? How about if I get right there? See, this is the shitty thing. This is a shitty thing.
No.
Yep.
Is your headset muted? Maybe the headset. Or you don't have a headset.
Well,
do you?
I don't have a headset.
Why is it muted? I can't hear a damn thing through Discord.
But you periodically hear a glitch, right? You hear something.
I thought I was.
Every now and again, it lights up, like right now.
Yeah.
It lit up, and I'm yelling right at the screen. I'm about 8 inches from my screen.
Can you record your voice in any other applications? Because I'm just thinking your mic's fucked up.
Well, I'm thinking the mic's fucked up now too, in some fucked up way. And so maybe the thing is I mean, just this phone, right? And what I could do is just mute Discord or fall deaf in all of Discord, maybe.
Yeah, we could do that.
Absolutely, or whatever. I was just calling to see what's up with you, what you've been thinking about.
Oh, God. Well, I was, earlier today I was meditating on your kids, and I was meditating on you, and I was meditating on someone talking about the winters of Maine on the shore, and even though you're by a lake, you're by a shore, and it was something interestingly kind of romantic. Same thing about, up above you was Lighthouse Country in Canada. Not that I haven't been there, but I was going to go there at one point.
Lighthouses are cool. We got a bunch of them here too, but yeah. Well, that's weird, yeah. So, but are you recording?
I think so. I mean, I hit I'm on here and I hit start recording, and that was basically when we called.
Well, you're not streaming, because I could always check.
Well, no, this just. Well, no, I'm not streaming. Do you think if I click start streaming also that will automatically link to YouTube? Probably not. Or, I mean, will it stop the recording?
No, what you do is you can go to YouTube on the YouTube stream. Not that you should do it now, but if you want, you go to the YouTube streaming page, and there is a place in there. It'll all be asterisks, but you can click to look at it, and it's a code. So it's really easy. You just take that code, and you put it in OBS, it knows the URL and everything.
It wouldn't make sense.
It'll stream automatically after that.
If my mic on my laptop is this fucked, right? Even though the OBS seems like it's picking everything up, like it's like the bar, the graph shows that it's picking everything up.
Well, then what the fuck is going on now?
Well, so this is a problem that I've been having.
Push to talk?
No, well, no. I mean, I've played with that. No, it's voice to talk. I mean, I've gone through these settings a while, and even my StreamYard, like I stopped streaming after the last stream that I did, not because I wanted to. I was going to finish up this Flitz app thing, but it won't. The StreamYard now won't pick up my mic, so I go through all my mic settings, and I go through all their mic settings, and I go through each one of them, and nothing is matching up. So then I'll reboot the system, and on occasion, either StreamYard or maybe it's Skype, and I closed everything down. I didn't have more than one recording application open at a time, thinking, could that be it? Like, two applications are trying to listen to the mic at the same time, and there's maybe something. I don't know. I don't know what the theory was on it, but that's why I'm talking a theory.
Sounds like your mic's failing, I guess.
Well,
is it a laptop? It's a laptop, right?
Yeah, this is a laptop.
This is a laptop. Mic. Yeah, maybe it's just going.
See, and I've
had a lot of audio problems too, where you have to reboot, and even I use Linux, which is pretty stable.
Yeah.
Same thing. Fucking audio will go wacky, and you have to totally reboot, which in Linux you never have to do. But I've been using Windows again, and it has problems too. It's a little better though. Windows is a little better.
No, I got a PC.
But definitely double check your push to talk. I had push to talk and some of these channels need it, and I forgot. No, things light up and whatnot, and you have to push F1 or whatever.
I'm totally there, and I'm totally go there right now. Even again, I go down, I do voice and video, I scroll down, it's got voice active clicked. Even in here, I do the check right here. I'm doing a check, and then it's like, okay, so now it's showing the voice is going in, right? It's showing it right there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, unmute yourself and let me listen in there again.
Okay, hang on. Okay, we're gonna try this out right there. Then maybe there's an interference pattern. No, see, now I'm talking.
You're not lighting up now.
I know, and you can't hear me either. There I am.
Now you lit up, and I can't hear you anyway.
See, so I just moved the phone away a little bit, thinking maybe there was some feedback loop, or
no, I'm getting no.
I mean, it wouldn't be like that. It wouldn't affect the Discord in that manner.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
every once in a while I hear a little bit of sound that sounds like it's probably from in there, like your mic is like a loose connection kind of a sound. Like it's just sometimes it's well, that sucks.
Well, and I don't know what to make of it, I really don't. And the thing is like right now, maybe I am coming through on Discord on your end. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just hearing you. I'm hearing me through the phone through you. And not
I definitely am not hearing anything. And I can go right on. I was just on another Discord channel. I know my system's working at the moment.
See, and it's so weird because the OBS shows both the screen recording and it shows the in-person.
And the mic is going green. Yeah, I use that all the time. I've never had that fail. So that means your mic's fine. So maybe your Discord is fucked up.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I do. Shit. I keep having these Discord problems, and I got to tell you though, I didn't want to have a Discord problem because, or I didn't want to uninstall and reinstall Discord at the idea that I might somehow lose access to certain servers.
I think you might.
Well, and well, I don't know. I mean, if you have one account, actually, you should just be able to log back in.
No, I've done this. I've installed Discord on second machine, and it keeps all your channels that you're subscribed to.
I downloaded Discord, and I
have your Discord password though.
Well, here's the thing. I downloaded Discord, and every time I boot my system up, it says Discord error, like the one that I did. So I'm always using, at least currently, I'm using the website Discord to log in, not the software. Right? Meaning I go to their URL, and that's where I'm logged in at. That's maybe there's.
You can reinstall Discord.
Well,
you don't even have to uninstall it. You could just start by trying to reinstall it. But if you want to uninstall and reinstall it, as long as you have your Discord password or recover
it's a recovered account.
Then all the channels exist. And I know that because I set up Discord on second machine, and all my channels come over.
Well, I've had it on phone. I've had the same account. I mean, I know it's there. It's the whole uninstalling. And you're right. And I won't download it on my phone. I have problems, like I said, even doing speed recordings of paintings now. It's like, wow, years ago, there was software that was just intuitive and things made sense and I could do these things. And now, the software, even the OBS software, seems like right now, I'm like, okay, it says it's recording, but it's giving no data about where it's recording to or anything like that, right?
And I'm left like, over there, it'll tell you what the output directory is, and you can change it if you want. So you go over there, and then you can find that recording, and you can listen and see if your voice and everything's recording. But if the little green bar is going up, it's getting audio. But sometimes if you listen to it, it could be static or something.
And it's all right now, it's all a black screen, right? I was quickly, during a little gap in time, I was trying to get the screen to record Discord screen. And I even went there and I clicked it and it was like it wasn't going. And I'm like, Jesus, just hit fucking record the black screen. You know, because that's right when you called back. So what do you want to talk about? So what's on your mind?
I don't know, various things. But I was just thinking about this. It's too bad. So I can't hear yet. And it could be the browser. What's on my mind? Nothing in particular. I just started a job a month ago, and that's going good. So I've been distracted. I've been listening to people online, on the Discord. And it's pretty good because, I want to argue some of these things because I'm like monitoring all this news. So I'm watching Tucker Carlson and things like this, and they just say things that really surprise me. So nothing in particular. My wife's off because my brother-in-law committed suicide. It's weird.
Just when was that?
Just a couple days ago.
Oh, dude.
Yep.
What is that? This has got to be. What's going on? Meaning, what do you think is going on? Give me a theory of what's going on. Why is this happening so close to you?
Oh yeah, it's so close to me. Well, I don't know. I think I know a lot of people, but it seems like there's a lot of suicides. But in terms of why me, it's like, I know a lot of people like that. So I feel like a lot of what I've been through is it's not super rare as a working class experience. I mean, I kind of come from a working class and underground attitude kind of culture where these things are always only a degree of separation or two away. In his case, I don't know. It's like everybody always.
By the way, everyone, we're listening to Pyrrho314.
He was a little pent up and kind of, pro-Trump and a vet and stuff, but he reunited with his
holy shit.
Mom, and I don't know. It's pretty weird. He had work.
Was he identified with Trump's policy, or was he just overburdened by the fact he didn't have? Would he lose work, or?
No, that's the thing. He was having problems in his marriage. He just decided it wasn't good enough. Things weren't going to go good, or this or that, or I don't really know if they were going to break up or whatever. But they've been arguing. So they had a big argument the day before, and in the morning he just decided. I think he just woke up in a fugue. I think it's a mental thing. I was really mad at first because son was the one that found him, and it was kind of because of the way he did it. But
it's just like.
Then who knows? I don't know, man. I can't decide whether it was a right or wrong decision. I think it's pretty fucked up for his son, who was a sophomore, 16-year-old stuff. But I was real mad for a day, and then after that, because I also at the same time felt sorry for him in that situation. But so this is so like because of me. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm drawn to the vortex of human misery.
I'm not trying to, you know,
it feels like that.
a vortex of
Human
misery.
misery needs me.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about how people swap energy fields in the margins a little bit after they talk for a while, and so that's always an interesting fact. So, what do you think of this phrase? There were a bunch of fags, but they weren't homosexual. What do you think of that phrase?
It's funny because I never used that word in that generic way, even though it's like generationally was common, but I just did with my stepson playing with big tennis rackets came in, started. I think it's kind of meaningless. Except for it's not meaningless because I know what that would mean, but I just think we're beyond it, like neutralizing words like that. I'm in the other direction. Like I didn't realize until I was in my 30s that gypped was a gypsy thing, like saying you got Jude, which I had never heard in my 30s. But I used gypped all the time, and I had no idea it was like a gypsy slur. So I just stopped using it. So that's my attitude about words like that.
Right. Like pull back on
but
the implication
of words. That word that way today. Right? Do you know what I'm talking about? You ever play tennis?
What, they chipped me?
They had the small rackets, and then they came in with those Prince rackets that were giant. And when they showed up at the tennis courts, it's like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like,
right. With those new...
What? That's not... what? You feel like coming to the football with a different kind of ball or something.
Yeah, or a baseball mitt that's 4 feet wide.
It was like,
you know?
And so I was like, it was like they were all faggots, and I thought, but not really, because I don't think of that word that way. But but it's generational. I forget.
They're all faggots. I don't want to run to that side of the court. I'll use my big racket.
Yeah, and it's just like, wait, are you good at sports or what?
And that's also when Nike decided to like add another ½ inch to the sole of their shoes or something. Like, oh shit, everyone's wearing all the basketball.
No, and composite bats, all kind of things. There was a whole
augmented height. Yeah.
Golf clubs, all of these material sciences caused a crisis of faith in sports.
Now, I'm happy that there is a multiplicity of historic stylistics in brand items that people can purchase in terms of shoes. Like you can find kind of old school shoes if you want to go find them, or you can just go to Walmart. Lots of different selections of shoes. Lots of different variety of items are interesting.
When all tennis shoes suddenly cost like $150, that was the worst. I was so pissed.
Yeah.
For 8 years, and then like the Payless shoe stores and some other type of places started coming out with the knockoff $30 tennis shoes.
Yeah, I have a pair of. I have
a monopoly.
Pair of.
You couldn't get a shoe.
$10 shoes on right now that I got $10 for a pair of shoes, and these ones I have broken feet. These ones really help out, and they cost $10. So I was just like, and I was normally going there paying $21 every time I was there for another pair of shoes. Always Velcro.
In the 80s and 90s, it's just a big scam, like glasses. Like when it used to cost, $300 for a pair of glasses, ugly $200 frame, and then they have fancy frames that don't cost any more to make, and they just ramp it up.
God bless the dollar store, except for every time I buy their dollar glasses, the lenses really fall out easily. I was like, God, I gotta fucking crazy glue those lenses in for all the dollars. So now I just buy shit gob of them. No, I know. So I just keep buying buttloads of them. Yeah, just all over.
I had $1 glasses supply, reading glasses supply in Hawaii, but out here I'm buying $8. Actually, I bought some of the Foster Grant ones to try them out. Those are like $15, but I can't buy those because I lose them. But they are better made. Even the ones where it's like, like what we have here, where it's like the Walgreens or whatever has like 3 for $12 or something, and those fall apart. You don't lose them. Luckily, I lose them faster than they fall apart, but they only last about a year.
For what?
The cheapest glasses.
Oh, the cheapest glasses last about a year.
Yeah, I don't know where to get any $1 glasses around here.
Well, I figured you were probably more of a glasses guy than I was generally. Like I figured you were wearing glasses.
I need a 2.0 reading glass or 2.0 to read the computer.
Oh, see, and I'm not wearing glasses to read my computer. It's set at regular thing, but sometimes it gets a little blurry, and I have reading glasses for a lot of times it's like my phone or paper.
If I'm reading a book or the phone, I can use those 2.0s, but I have to hold away a little. For actual reading a book, I'm at a 2.5.
Well, the 3,
this for a long time.
dollar store only goes to a 3 as far as what I could find. And that was a little too wacky. I was like, too much THC compared to CBD. And this modern vape. So there is an interesting thing about Utah law is that they've allowed medical marijuana. And I happen to qualify for it. And
are you one of the ones? I heard a bunch more states just did it.
Well, in December, they're going to be cutting off a lot of, at the end of December, at the end of the year, they're going to be cutting off a lot of people that had just, like, if they got a doctor to just sign compassion use until you can show why it is that you're medically needed, we're going to just throw compassion use license to the people. So they have it currently until December 31st. But then they would have to have their doctor like sign off like, yeah, your condition is worse enough to be considered medically damaged enough that you would need this shit. So anyway, the point is that's news.
One like that, but we got wrecked now.
You got wrecked now?
Maine had a strict one where there was a list of ailments, and there wasn't really any fucking around. And as opposed to like California, theirs was always like you could just go to a doctor and they'd ask you, "What do you want it for?" Stress. Okay, stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Hawaii was in the middle. Hawaii was pretty easy to make you jump through some paperwork hoops, and then almost anybody could get it.
Well, and I just happened to be busted up.
We got rec stores opening in a couple months, and recreationally legal for like 2 years. They're just finally getting the stores, actually allowing them to own a store though. That's about to happen. Yeah, I got this guy. He's also a Trump fan, a friend. He's fucking millionaire. He's been doing medical marijuana, and he's been setting up for the recreational the last 4 years. And now he's set. He's probably going to get even super rich now, I imagine.
That's
like some of the first commercial licenses set up. And he's a Trump. And he's a conservative, and he doesn't smoke anymore either.
Ending the legalization of hemp in America was a stress on white farmers and farmers in general that I think mirrors the stress that white people laid on the Native Americans. And I don't know why the federal government decided to so much outlaw it other than it was overly stigmatized. And I know it has attributes, and by the same accord, I might argue for Trump. Like, Trump has these attributes. Trump is an interesting phenomena still. I didn't want him as this lady I would listen to earlier today. Like, I don't want Trump to take up so much mental real estate in my head. You know what I mean? Like, I got other things to think on. But if you want to talk politics,
but I think he's eaten out a space of mental real estate where it's like a maggot for a wound to clean the wound. You ever heard of that? You ever heard of that practice?
Cleaning the wound, yeah. Yeah, clean the
with
wound.
maggots. With maggots.
Oh, well, not with maggots. I mean, if that's where it stemmed from, I guess it did. I guess there were maggots in wounds
No,
before there was germ theory.
I'm not saying it works that great.
Oh.
But this is a practice, and in a way, I could say that what you were saying is that Trump takes up too much mental space. And I was just saying, yeah, but he took up some mental space where I think for a lot of people, he might have cleaned that out. Now, it's not clean. It's got a maggot in it. But it is sort of clean. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the torn up rotten flesh has been, taken out, and it's raw, and it's a wound, but it's been clean,
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't say it has actually been clean. It's pretty weak now.
Well, and
anyway, that's what I thought of when you were talking about him in mental real estate.
My concern now, Pyrrho, is about the maggot. How's the maggot doing?
Well, I hope he goes to jail.
Oh, you hope the maggot goes to jail. You hope Trump goes to jail. Huh.
Yeah.
And you mean Trump was like a maggot in the U.S. body politic?
Yeah, eating out, cleaning a wound. But he's really just a maggot. But, he puts it in there and eats all that rotten flesh. And then once he gets down to the raw flesh, boom, he's got to be killed.
That's what they meant by cleaning up the smoke.
But I thought you might have heard of it, because I'm pretty sure there's even people still say, like, if you sterilize the maggots and whatnot, then this is an idea, and there's been tests and everything on it, I'm pretty sure.
Dude,
from the world of the weird, but it's the real thing. But anyway, that reminds me, so maybe I wasn't listening close enough, but are you saying you believe the COVID stuff is just like a plan-demic?
Yeah, well, either yes, or it gathered support beams in a huge fashion that I think are less than epidemiologically concurred within epidemiology.
So they took your post down.
They took my post down. Yes.
That's amazing. Your post wasn't conspiratorial. It was discussion.
There was a second video.
It's wrong, but that's weird. I didn't know they were really prohibiting that, because I see other people doing it all the time too.
I don't know what it just vanished. I got some notification, think through Messenger or something, and then it was just gone. And but I posted a second video which was recording. Well, the second video that I posted was one of the We Are Change videos. That guy, Luz Lebowski, or whatever his name is, and he pulled up a video that was claimed to be the head general of the U.S. saying that they are prepared to have full nationwide inoculations within a 24-hour period. We have been planning in training to have full U.S. inoculations and do it all in 24 hours.
Well, I just saw Trump in a press conference with the general that's going to get it out, and he was just saying once we get the
warp speed approval,
vaccines, it should be within 24 hours that we start sending them the kids, because the government's going to send the kids. So,
well,
he wasn't saying
that's not quite the way that it was phrased. Maybe meaning.
Like the same thing I thought.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the same thing. He was basically saying as soon as we get authorization, we will be able basically to implement nationwide, like mandate under force inoculations. That's what I got from it. That's what it was alluded to. And yet I had no one to verify it, and I hadn't gone off on some tangent to verify things because, okay, so get a load of this. I'm trying to figure out and write a resume, and actually an employment resume, to go work with Neuralink. And so there's that. And
what's Neuralink? That sounds familiar.
Well, Neuralink is Elon Musk's brainchild about basically creating the first cyborgs, which is, yeah. So it's a cyborg company, and I thought, well, I have cyborg ideation, and I have means of mimicry of what I think is good cyborg mythos or mythology, cyborg mythology. Not that I'm heavily drenched in it or anything. I'm not drenched in cyborg mythology, but I can meander through it, and I figured, hey, I would make an okay manager. But not just a manager. I kind of wanted to be able to also see where they're putting it together, like their operating room orderly position, something to that effect. But there was also something that having to do with design methods, and I thought, I got a lot of work to do. Meaning, I got a couple things I need to pull off before I make my application complete. Yeah, small things, but big enough for me. I mean, shit, if I have microphone problems that I can't resolve, what the hell good am I going to do at Neuralink? Neuralink cyborg making plant.
They'll give you a new computer in that case, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting stuff. I mean, I applied to Amazon in this last round, and I got far to like the 5-hour interview. And, I kind of panic attacks about it because I don't really want to work for big corporations. And then part of me is like, I don't know. And there's not a lot of companies I would feel like would be reliable jobs enough to bother doing it.
Well, I mean, if you feel like...
It was a really weird experience, I'll tell you. It was, I went in whole hog, but...
5 hours.
When in there, it was a cultish attitude toward it. I applied to Tesla once, they never got back to me, but I ended up taking this other job before Amazon got back to me, and they didn't want me to work there, but it was like, because it was totally the wrong job for me, and they wouldn't tell me exactly what it was. It's kind of,
intracode.
You don't have to know what a particular language or something, because they're just going to put you on whatever, and the programmer can do whatever, and so we don't care, and then whatever, and it's like, well, when you get there, you don't do whatever, there's fucking code, it's in a language.
Yeah.
I want to know what language it is. So,
well, and precisely.
Those fucking corporations, but I like having my own business, but...
Well, and everybody's limited to the language lexicons that they have at their disposal, and some people, I guess, have created their own mock languages and conversational Klingon or some sort of J.R. Tolkien's Elven language, any language, right? And then Python and C++.
I think one of the reasons I find your idea so interesting is, the way you think is unique. But your language, I get it, and it's my language, and there's certain, and like if you're searching for a term or have to coin a term, or let's say a 3-word phrase to use that as a term, I'll generally get that construction. Because for whatever reason, like your personal language of abstraction, which isn't personal because you also have gotten it from a lot of reading and stuff.
Well, it moves through, it arrays through the personal.
My personal language of abstraction. So, like, we have different ideas and just agree on all stuff.
I think you're a wannabe masochist. You're a wannabe masochist. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I might be. But, failed masochist.
Because I'm less than abstract, meaning that you think that I'm not purposely being mean because I am also being expressive, or I'm going through it like an array, but I'm dragging some things that, not as mean, but meaning... Well, I mean, I picked up some allusion from what you said.
You were talking about creating your own language, which is an interesting thing. Like, my first thought is like, hey, let's do that. I always like to do that. And J.R.R. Tolkien, like, I'm not dedicated enough to have learned Elfin, but I always thought it was cool. He actually created this language as well. But what I was then thinking is, and one reason I would like to get this story working and do this is that we think differently enough that there's a lot of friction or whatever between what we think. But we have a similar lexicon. If you coin some idea through a series of words, and some of them are abstract, or these words that people wouldn't necessarily get, I do get them, and you seem to get mine. So we can convey the information. We didn't collaborate on making a secret language, but I've noticed there's only a very small subset of people that get that quote unquote language. And I mean, I have a theory about what it's about, which is that most people can't think abstractly. Like, you give them an example, they can't use that
JavaScript?
example as an example of something else.
C++ or JavaScript, that's creative, contextual, framed programming stuff. I don't know it. You do know it. You're privy to that. You've pushed yourself into that. And that is where your stressors are. That was your resolution. It's where your capitalistic resolutions reside. And I lament the good old days before I had a friend cast me a gaze on the gray lands of the milky clay, the clay destiny, where you miss your takeoff point. Like, wait, what? That son of a bitch delayed me. Which is weird when you circle back. Like, I imagine there's circling back, meaning now, like from where 3D development was in the late 90s compared to downloading an app where you can choose 3D characters and put them together, or have them do different things now, almost like a auto puppets for kids. I figured eventually I would live in the community that reaped the benefits of access to the realm, but still lamented the fact that I didn't have the brush, which would have been my nest builder. Instead, for a guilty second abortion, because I still had failed at the next moment financially, I think she got rid of the second pregnancy. But then to flip the coin, I sat there and I actually had this psychotic delusion, because I can even go this far, almost into sci-fi, even if there's no evidence of it. But I thought, God, under the evidence that there is, one could fit a module that would suggest that each time that she claimed she got pregnant by me, it was actually that she had gotten pregnant by somebody else and came and had sex with me, and then used that as some sort of reason to have an abortion. And I thought, God, that would just be purely malicious. I don't know, in that, meaning it was timed relative to the time that we had sex, and the first one, I have to admit, it felt like I hit the spot. Like, oh my God, I just felt that one land. Yeah, exactly. And even the next time, and the thing is I had dated her in high school, and so the first time that we actually met for a long day, we slept with each other, and she got pregnant when I was in college, and then 10 years later, the first night that we were together, we got together, and she got pregnant. And so meaning that a molding, like a manifold or a top second half of a molding, could fit upon that story where, she was dating some guy and screwing him and really loved him, and oh God, here's this old boyfriend and he's all wrapped up in this world, so what I'll do is I'll just fly down, fuck him, and then go back and have the abortion, and tell them both that it's the other one's baby, or tell them it's their baby, or whatever's convenient. And but then,
that's probably the paranoid spectrum, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's,
it doesn't really matter.
That doesn't matter. That's all incidental. So what are you are you prognosticating some sort of? I mean, it sounds like there's obviously psychological non-buoyancy going on in the world, in terms of people losing it. And I did get a clip like that, a vision like that, okay, just end everything, because people were bringing up suicidal ideation, like hey, just think about it. Yeah. You got to think about everything. Yeah.
For me, it's gotten better in the sense that I would say I've probably been clinically depressed, coping with it, with pretty good coping mechanisms, and just working hard, things like that, for the last 8 years since June died. And then when Claire died, it was a huge blow, but it's also like a closed parenthesis.
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm.
So I feel like I have probably started to recover from a depressed attitude, and I don't have a suicidal, ideation. My thing with suicidal ideation is weird because, like I first started thinking about that question when, I probably had a troubled childhood, but I never thought of suicidal stuff, and I wasn't sad about it. It's like punk rock, who gives a fuck? And but I thought about it because I started reading, philosophy, and I read Camus, and he's like, to be or not to be, that's actually the only philosophical question. So I thought it through a lot for years, and then when bad things happened, I got in a negative relationship where my daughter died, and you actually wonder, like, is life worth living? So I have had suicidal ideation like that as well. But then when I'm non-suicidal, I always feel like thinking about that question is still important, right? So I'm always thinking about it, and usually I'm not actually. But then with June, just to make it short, it's long already, but I would say I had an 8-year kind of depression where basically, waking up every day with the suicidal ideation, at least subtle.
Because you're
literally where you imagine doing it.
Well, because you're chasing her down, and you're having it, meaning you're identifying with following her through it, and you doing it yourself. So it's doubled, just out of the mere fact that you track it from her point of view in your mind and your point of view outside her mind.
Interesting.
And
I wouldn't say I ever thought about it that way, but that's an interesting point. No, to me, it's usually very utilitarian, or like, why bother style, a depressed person. Not a spoiled, how when Haifuliday committed suicide, I don't know, do you remember his video he made?
Yeah.
So people do get to suicide a lot of different ways, I figure, mostly, a lot of them they are mad at everybody. You'll be sorry kind of an attitude. But, there's also just the practical why bother kind of attitude.
If I don't...
and the weird thing with Haifuliday is that he was kind of like, why bother? That's why I'm doing it. Fuck this bullshit. That's why I'm doing it. On the other hand, he went out with a really positive attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, to everybody else. Everybody else is like, oh, really great knowing you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Attitude, But if I went out, if I ever did commit suicide, I'd want to have it with that attitude. But
like, hey, everyone, we're going to have a party. Yay. Everyone get online. We're going to shake the, it'd be like the guy, Hunter S. Thompson. Like, celebrate a suicide. Something like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, but anyway, in my case, but I do think it's true, like, because the Trump losing and, the people that have been believing in him aren't going to go away. And I think there's been like a suicidal ideation in the air almost. Like even on CNN or whatever, they're not going to actually say that, but most normies aren't going to say, I've been thinking about his life worth living, but they hint at it. There's been a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And, and I wonder with this guy John, if, that wasn't just one thing, on top of a lot of other things.
Which guy John? Oh, your brother-in-law?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
God. Okay.
But, that...
Hey, man, do you have another...
He wasn't a big jerk about it or anything, but I think some guys with a esteem problem from we all have esteem problems, but they have esteem problems from the Vietnam vet kind of esteem problem, classification of esteem problem, that some of them got a boost of a guy that everybody thinks is uncouth being president, and, so there's an expert collapse.
Thanks.
Possibly, but mostly that probably wasn't it.
Yeah.
I don't want to make everything political, but...
Thank you. Yeah?
I just wonder.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you.
But,
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, keep going. I got a cigarette.
You've been doing, I was going to say you've been doing any art, but I feel like, no, I know about some art you did because you posted, but those were notebooks.
Well, I did finish.
Plus, I get you mixed with this other friend from wine that art that's slightly.
Yeah.
It's not like your art, but it'll be kind of like your art in the sense that like some.
Well, the big painting is done.
When you have a hybrid creature.
Oh, a high-rated creature. A savant, a cultural savant.
There's a word for that.
An emulated individual, an honorable, a royal, highly rated. They got good metrics. Yeah, I know there's a word for it. I know there is a word for it. I don't know what the word is for it.
Yeah, no, but
well, hang on. What I was going to say was I did finish this big piece, and it was the one that I had posted online that was most recent. So I finally took that off the wall, even though I had asked this woman to come over, pose nude, because she was planning on this a while back, but then she kind of retracted from it. But then I said, hey, come pose in front of this painting and then wear a witch hat, and you can be nude. And you can read your book, because she's an author. Still no go on that. But she's a doll. She's interesting, and so even her retraction was fine. And but the thing was just kind of this weird pluralism in my relationship with women is plural, and but it's scrappy. It's
you were talking about that. So you're in the search for love.
Something like that. You could say something like that.
Yeah, I get that.
But at the same time, I'm also dressed more like a nerf herder now than I've ever been. And so that's no good. And
well, isn't the thing is you'll never find a right woman if you have to fake too much. I mean, you can always adjust something.
Well, I do.
You gotta be yourself, or else what's the point? That's what you're looking for, right?
Well,
there, but I don't know. I don't have good comments in the sense that like I tried really hard to find somebody in my late 30s. There were various reasons. When I got divorced, I didn't at all. But then I thought I'm kind of becoming a weird person. I'm single dad with 2 daughters, but I don't know anybody. I don't have friends that have kids, so I went out. It's like I am going to socialize and have friends that have kids, and I'll have find people that have kids and stuff like this. So they didn't all have kids. And also then part of that was like, I'm going to find a woman. I need to have a chance. And I was all broken from my first relationship, and also I probably wanted the self-validation part or whatever. I also want love like we all want and deserve. And I found Jen, and now I feel like if that ever didn't work out, I'd be like, fuck that. It's not even asexual, but like a-reception, no relationships and all. But who knows how I'd really feel? I feel lucky to be in this situation, but I feel like it's so hard.
It's got to be
that emotional trauma that it's like, I don't know how I could ever go through it again.
Yeah,
I forget it.
It's difficult. Meaning.
Worthwhile. I mean, the thing is, I suspect if I was back in that situation, then I would be, because it's a great thing to find a relationship, and it's never too late, and the right person.
And see, that's the problem, though, is I ruined the right person.
I know that's your thing, one of your stories, but is that the same woman with the babies now?
No.
Yeah, I remember that's like a theme you got. We all have our themes or little life experiences that are coming up every day for us. Yeah, that sounds like a hard one, but it's hard, like, from out here to know how that really breaks up, because, it can seem that way. It always seems that way, but, but then again, I wouldn't say you were wrong. I don't know, and I think that can happen, but what are you going to do about shit like that? I feel bad for you, though, because that must be a hard thing to think, to look at it that way.
Well, it's got its problems, but I'm also over it. I'm beyond it. So, I mean, and it drove me down, right? It really brought me down, brought life down. Everything was down at that point. But even then, It's more like reflection, allowing yourself to open yourself up to the reflection of horrific events. And
Well, when I was young, I don't know if you're one of these people, but I met a bunch of people that were always like, that would be simpatico with the idea of like, well, I wouldn't change anything because it made me who I am today. And as you get older, there's two problems with that. One, you're not always happy with how it made you. That's why I'm angry or whatever, And two, you can't use those lessons. It's great when you're young and you have a bad lesson and you can go on and like, oh, I don't do that anymore. But, I'm not going to learn anything from having fucked up somehow that's almost impossible to figure out accurately with my kids. I'm not going to have another 20 years raising a kid to use that knowledge. I guess maybe if I'm a grandparent or I'm an uncle, you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter, even if it wasn't that case. You learn these lessons, they're like, yeah, well, fuck you, lesson. That'd be great if I was ever going to use that lesson.
Well, really, not every lesson is for every person. I mean, that's what I meant by you.
No, that's true. Right. Yeah. I got a lot of lessons I don't feel I needed. It's like, what the fuck? That was off point.
Yeah.
Didn't need that lesson.
God. See, I was about ready to stretch another canvas on the wall, and I may be doing that while we're chatting. Even though I'm really lamenting the idea of doing that because I have wanderlust big time right now, and I was gonna drive somewhere, and north, south, or west, or east, and figure the options there. And I'm working with a map on my wall that has the interstates. I think this thing was made in the late 80s. And so I have no idea what roads are actually currently laid, like visually. Other than,
Utah, like a red around Utah?
Yeah.
Where did I see that? On Facebook?
Probably on Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't seen any videos popped up. Yeah, so that's not just to work hard. You're using that. You're looking at those highways with your wanderlust all the time too.
Mostly because I have I have a world map and a United States map on my wall in my living room, and it's when I am working on a big painting in the dining area, I'm working on a small painting in the living room, and so, or just when I'm kicking back, like right now, I am just kind of kicking back because I'm like, God, I don't want to go look for the damn staple gun. It's over there somewhere. I mean, I have like 3 staple guns, so it's like, shit. And anyway, my ankles are feeling like shit.
Well, you're thinking a lot about that, but is it wanderlust? Maybe you need to be somewhere besides Utah. Not for wandering, but for going there.
Well,
settling there.
I have, I don't know. I get nervous about leaving. I get nervous about staying.
Well, because your artistic attitude is like, a little more urban than Utah, probably.
Well, this place has got a lot of
you don't be a visual
stuff.
artist anymore, because I remember you were telling me, I don't know, maybe I'm not done with art for a while, but whatever, your creative nature, there's places in Oakland and I don't know, New York or something where that would fit in, but you don't want to go somewhere that's like the slave culture of $3,000 apartments, but there's Portland, Oregon, and you know what I mean? There's all levels of interesting city where they like creative people.
Well, I thought if I go south, I might, I'd cut through maybe Arizona and then cut across into New Mexico, and maybe cut down into Texas, and then who knows from there. And then I had this notion that I would go up through Montana and then over to the Dakotas and go down the middle of the Dakotas into Nebraska and then Kansas and Oklahoma, then into Texas. And then this other one just said, now just beeline all the way from Salt Lake all the way to Ohio and then cruise all the way to New York and then Connecticut and then through New Hampshire. Go up to MIT and Harvard area, and then go up into New Hampshire, and then even up into Maine.
You have all the money. That's expensive.
Well, I don't really have all that much money. It's just more like
even the gas is expensive.
Well, is gas expensive out there? It's really on this side of the Rockies currently.
It's these days. Anywhere you're going, it's like even if you're going to camp and sleep in your car and stuff.
Well, and then
people do it, but I mean, like I know people that do it, but the only way you really do a big trip like that is like.
Well, what I need is
do odd jobs or something to get gas money.
Well, no, I mean, if I I would probably be dropping down because the winter wouldn't work. The only reason in Ohio there's some bondage lady that likes abuse. There's just something about her sadomasochistic ways that has this appeal to me. And yet at the same time, I mentioned that to I think my mom, and my mom said something like, well, that's not you. Like, that's not, I don't know whether or not that would be you. You don't want to be with the woman that wants you to deck her. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't. That's not really my thing. And I probably wouldn't be doing that, but it might be her thing. And then I'm like, it was just more like a curiosity freak show.
See, that's the other thing you and I have in common is that no aversion to just the alienness itself of this experience is like, I want to find out what it's like.
Well, and the other thing was
that's why we have dangerous lives. There's the reason right there, I'll bet.
Did you say that's why we have...
You know what I did since June died? I spent 2 years over there. Then I came here and I holed up in my house. And in terms of having a life dream, it's like, I want to work, that's fine, but I want to work from my house, and that house is in the country. So I just bet it all on that. I did get a house in the country. I have been able to get work, and I just hid. I don't leave my house except for every, I don't know, probably once a week, but I mean, long times. And that's great. Fuck it. But in general, when I think back, for someone who's kind of cautious and wants to plan out ahead and figure it out, it's like, yeah, I plan ahead, and then I do these fucking crazy, risky things. I mean, I moved up here to Maine, like, I'm going to be able to work from Maine, and, and I did it. Or I left a career in California, moved to Hawaii. Why? Well, because maybe the corporations are the problem. I'll go live in Hawaii with my hippie dad. And like, no fear whatsoever. And then I remember back when I was in teenage and having some of my friends and other, because I was like a good student, and so I know these other good student types, and like, one thing is like, you have no fear, you'll try new things. And I admire that. And to me, it's like, what? I don't even know. I'm cautious. I'm scared. I'm worried about I'm taking a road trip, and I'm worried about if the tire's good enough and whatnot.
Well, I'm worried about the transmission.
No, I fucking am crazy. I'll just go do shit because it's interesting. Like you're saying, like an odd allure, even though I know it's not my thing. But that's dangerous. That's how we get in danger. That's how you get in danger. I think that's how I got in danger. That allure of, like, I know it's not my thing, but I want to see it myself.
Well, I think I'm less unhinged now. I'm not hinged, like I don't want to say like I'm hinged to location, but my mental hingings have, definitely, been overly focused upon. It kind of like in philosophy, I generated class systems based on a certain lexicon of use. I think it's like the preferred lexicon or the normative, meaning that which is in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy lingo, in order to classify this reduction to triads that I was trying to formulate. Not trying to formulate, that I formulated.
Right.
And then the triad, I was making some comment about the COVID science is bad because there's at least 3 different angles of descent upon, the definition, first the sense of isolation relative to the claims of mutation, relative to somebody saying that there's a patent, someone sending me a patent, once again not verified, but the notion that COVID as we know it now is a patented thing, therefore it's manufactured. If it's manufactured, through in some fashion by human hands instead of by nature, then that opens up a whole new realm as to why it was where it was and how it was. But then anyway, so there's scientists in Canada that claim that they isolated the virus, meaning that they reduced it, saying that it actually was a thing. And then there's a doctor that dissents against that, saying, no, it's not a thing. What you have, what they're calling a virus isn't even a virus. Right. And then he was going through all of this breakdown as to why this was the case. He says, what you're working with here, and he gave it another name. And I thought, okay, so here's a biologist that is making this claim about it being not even a virus, right? And so, like I said, and maybe that's not a triad per se, even though I've given like 5 examples, but it was more like, depending on how you want to look at these points, down which hallway do you want to look at these points? If you have a triad, you have a fractionable domain, that's bigger than a circle, or not bigger than a circle. It's just the smallest straight geometric points. And so, and somehow that kind of myopic grounding is kind of how the process that I had to go through in order to clamp to mental coherence, so that I'm not like, hey, look, there's someone jumped a bike over that dirt hill, maybe I should jump my van over it. That kind of unhingedness. Or, I wonder whether or not that bumper on that ledge works of the road. Like, I'm not going to test that shit. Right? Like, that's not in my objective. My objective is not to be dangerous. But when you phrased it, you're more likely to do something that's dangerous. I'm not even certain what that means.
Because of the allure of, like, the taste of an experience.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you don't have to analytically understand experience, but you're like, geez, I want to go over there and see what that light is that's coming in over that hillside. Or that looks like a dangerous place, but it's interesting. So I'm trust myself. I can handle myself, so I go in because it's interesting. And it just seems like a similar thing. But,
well, it is similar. There's other things.
I was going to say about some of the things about the plan part of the epidemic.
Oh.
I don't believe any of those kinds of theories for a pretty simple reason right off the bat, like even if I'm wrong, because I believe that the ruling class wants us to feel like they have that all-encompassing power. But in reality, they're a bunch of Keystone cops. They got $1 billion. They get to make 1 million mistakes and still be on top. So it looks like they never make mistakes. But in reality, they make millions of mistakes. And I've worked in the corporate world, and I watched them make mistakes. And so bullshit, they cannot have their act together to coordinate the whole world.
Worldwide inoculation.
Like this. Yeah. So, and 2, as far as it comes to science, it's statistical. So you can't trust it because of the people. They're not priests like they're supposed to be pure, nothing like that. The reason is it produces receipts, and there's people that check the receipts. They are angry little humans like everybody, and that's good because that means they check the receipts with anger. They check the receipts with love. They check the receipts and honestly say, hey, these didn't work out, even though I'm a big fan of you and I wanted them to work out. And so you look at things statistically. When you take advice from science, you can either ignore science if you want, but if you do take the advice from science, it's got to be the statistical kind, and that's why the consensus, and it's not that they're right, they're changing their ideas with new facts, because that's a part of science.
Yeah.
But at any given moment, they are way more expert at processing those facts and checking the other scientists' receipts than anybody else.
Well, hang on. Hang on. What my claim wasn't when you asked, is it a pandemic? Mine was, if it's not, then they were able to well structure the phenomenon like really quickly, meaning they were able to undergird it.
They're not that organized as that. They're a bunch of fucking fools.
But that's why I don't.
Have that's a lot of money.
But you're right. Meaning, I think you're agreeing with me, but to the extent that I think
every crisis they align to profit off of it. Every single one they align to profit in money and politics and propaganda. Every crisis possible.
Right, but the media regurgitation of it, even if it's stemmed out of profit, has a neurotic chilling effect.
But here's the thing, Mike. There really are over 200,000 people dead from it.
Well, you keep
that they can pull off. But it's going to turn out to be true.
But my point was, there's the difference between dying from it and dying with it, and they're counting all the with it's as from it.
No, that's not true. The medical science has to deal with that all the time. People die of pneumonia, but they were old and they also had a heart problem or whatever.
But hang on, let me contest it though.
How the medical statistics are calculated.
Right, but here's another way that another fractionist point was that some doctors, if somebody even had symptoms without a test and they died, they were incentivized, your point, through a profit margin, like you or your hospital will be given $50,000 for every COVID death that you report, meaning the government was subsidizing them to do that.
I haven't found anything credible that supports that particular thing. I've heard that one before, but maybe.
That's what I mean. Is like I'm not spending a lot of time debunking all of the points. But
pneumonia deaths or flu deaths every year. They don't do a fucking tissue sample every time.
No, I know.
No, right. So that's how medicine works. And so when you nitpick the fact that, but we don't have an exact thing. No, that's why I'm saying it's statistics. A mistake here and a mistake there, they tend to average out, or at the worst, they create this noise, the plus or minus. But people are using that to say, like Trump in one of his rallies was like, a plane goes down and 200 people die and they call it COVID. No, that's not happening. The lie there is not doctors pretending. In most of these things, they're just going to be, it's a hard decision to decide what, quote unquote, somebody died from. And we're going to find out 3 and 5 years from now.
Sure.
They keep pouring over the numbers.
But
we'll see if there was an extra 250,000 deaths this year. We'll see.
Well, we will, but the idea of an archaeology to figure out a past dead resolved epidemic pandemic, it's like a post-mortem autopsy on the field of epidemiology after the fact, when kind of like an election. Kind of like 9/11, once the case is resolved and the propaganda is kind of solidified as generally what the narrative is, it does not mean that ontologically is what the facts of the matter were. And by that same accord, I don't.
Some things that are hard to fool. Like, for example, when I was watching these COVID statistics on the websites from the WHO and stuff.
Oh, wait.
There was 100 people a day in the United States. They had a chart that showed it going up. It showed that, like, in 3 weeks, it was going to be 2,000 a day. And I'm like, what the fuck? And that happened.
Yeah.
I agree. Plus or minus a couple days.
Well, look,
are people really dying? Maybe they manipulated. Well, guess what? I started knowing people that died from COVID, secondhand, and I've known people that have had it. So it's
wait. Okay, wait. Well, now I'm not denying that people are dying, and I'm not even denying that it's probably this disease. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying, like, my valence of scrutiny. Like, I got a valence of scrutiny, right? And it's a different type of margin of possible doubt increments or rudiments. And it's the same thing as supporting evidence. Like you said, there's statistical averages. And so if I have, whether or not I've vetted the data or not, if if somebody presents some form of accepted evidence, like I said, and I don't go and vet it. Kind of like with the idea of the army guy. I don't know if it's real. I should look it up. I should see if it's real. If it is, there should be an alarm gun going off, like across the nation. Like, hey, get prepared. Your own military is going to subjugate you and force you through inoculation. Maybe they're pumping in the Red Army through an agreement with China to facilitate this under the orders of the U.S.
Well, I've been reading about this idea where they're going to use an inoculation, and someone said that COVID could be used, or an airborne illness could be used to do a genetic insert that takes out the God center of the brain. Have you read about that? Like, there's a God center. If you poke it, that gets those people's spiritual feelings come from there, and it would just eat that part of the brain and defunction.
Well, you'd have to give me the title of the organ.
And they're going to use the vaccine for it.
Well, you can just tell me the part of the brain that you're referring to.
I don't know. They call it the God region. I forget where it's supposed to actually be, but a few years ago, like maybe 8 or 10, there were some studies, and I think, and it's just like, as far as I know, an area where when they stimulate it, people are like, have spiritual reactions. So it's something to do with,
like the hypothalamus or the limbic system.
Well, it's somewhere. Yeah, it's something like that. It's I forget where. You haven't heard of it? The God.
I have heard of it.
Center or something. Yeah. So the idea is that there was some guy, and I haven't followed up how much is where the truth of it comes from, but there was a military guy saying that they had this vaccine, and they were going to use it in the Middle East. So, I did see a clip from a presentation, because it was like some CIA idea of something we could do to make them stop religious fundamentalism in the Middle East. And that, you can't get people over there to, let you give them a shot. But if there was a pandemic, you could make them all get a shot. And so it's related, like,
well, somebody else.
4 hours and everything's all about they're going to, all give us all some sort of lobotomy. And in that case, it's a spiritual lobotomy. But
is it?
Do that organized?
Well, my point is this: if let's say consensus in the modern day is done, data collection has been done in mass, this is to isolate every individual to the extent that they can on the planet, right? Through cell phones, through triangulation, through 5G towers, through identification tags, through registrations, through phones, through all that. And it's pretty much global. Then you could say that there could be a global cabal that asks, like I said, deep learning or deep blue or something, what would be the best way to administer global dominance? And perhaps the AI machine, the grand beats the master Go player, has come up with a particular solution that's particularly creative. And that
I don't think that's how the ruling class is benefiting. I think.
Well, they're benefiting.
It's more like they're surfers. We're all surfers, and they're up on the wave. And when you're up on the wave, steering your surfboard around, it feels like you're steering the wave and everything. You're in control of the waves, but you got up at the right time. When the wave passed and you paddled and you were in the right place, right time, you stood up on it. Good for you. And you're not controlling the wave. When the wave finishes, you're going to finish. And the next people are going to catch the next wave. They're not in control of this shit the way they're pretending. They're just ordinary idiot human beings with all the same emotional problems that we have, only worse.
But somebody's got control.
Can you imagine, like, the Koch brothers spend billions of dollars in this propaganda, and they're billionaires. Can you imagine having even a tenth of $1 billion, and you spend all your time trying to fuck over other poor people? Fuck no. Like, they've got a mental problem.
Well, no, they do.
They're not in control of the world like a bunch of super geniuses. They're just fucking crazy people, crazier than the rest of us and what we're putting up with, but they got billions of dollars to just fuck with the world constantly.
Well,
if we stop them from doing that, there will be no problem 2 days later.
But what if one of the data sets for the AI is how do you tank the upper class in America so you only have the opulent upper class remaining, and that there's just such a huge shakedown? And what
AI
if?
is an idiot.
Well, okay, I know it's an idiot. It's an idiot, and I do kind of agree with that in one respect. In one respect. In another respect, we have something that you and I didn't experience as kids, which is an Alexis or an Echo or whatever the language interpreting tonal averages of people speaking, the comparison analysis.
If they get an AI and a robot that could be a barista and serve coffee, that'd be an amazing accomplishment.
What, to a bunch of human lobotomized zombies?
That's just like, it's going to be amazing when they do things anybody can do. Like, they're not clever. They're not going to be better at figuring out how to take over a country or the world, or give enough information to pull that off to a bunch of idiots that are looking at the data. It's going to come down to the humans, and they just think they're super bright.
Well,
it's all like with Trump and Kushner. What's Kushner in charge of? Everything, the Middle East, the Corona, everything. He's going to solve everything. No, he solved nothing.
He solved nothing.
They're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
And so they're in control because they got all the fucking money. So it's way simpler to me. They got all the money. How'd they get it? They started taking it fucking hundreds of years ago. That's fucking how. And they're mostly a bunch of idiots now. And they weren't always. I mean, I would say there's an era of some of the old money where they did pass down like how to fuck people over and stay on top, and that was guilt. And now it's a bunch of frat boys that don't even believe in reality. So that's why I'm not susceptible to. They are fucking over the world. I could tell you 100 fucking plans and plots, and the one reason we can tell you is because then they always blow up. They always blow up these stupid plans. But 10 years later, with hundreds of thousands of, fucking Chileans dead, but it doesn't sustain itself very well, is what the pattern really looks like. But they still have all the money. So until we just get all the money...
We laid uranium all over the Middle East in the first Gulf War. Not all over the Middle East, but all over Iraq. Meaning we've decimated that as far as... like proper genetic raising of humans. Like, I'm in Utah, it's a downwinder state, right? Like, it's a weird area to be saying, like, well, the genetic flux that occurs in this area relative to cancers is different from that one, and we believe cancer is a direct relation with radioactivity. And so my point is like you mentioned with the Cambodians, like, yeah, maybe there's a shitload of people dead, but this idea that they don't have, like, it sounded like you were playing both sides of the fence, like, yeah, they're idiots and the world will bounce back or something like that. It's like, yes, and, if you go to the Grand Tetons, you'll see fracking everywhere, just huge divots all over the place.
I'm just saying, when you think that they have some grand plan that they're pulling off with finesse, like a work of art, that we're overthinking it and thinking the wrong way. The stuff they actually pull off is a lot more obvious. It's right in front of everybody. They use a bunch of mind, like, magician tricks of misdirection so that people miss what's going on, but it's going on right in front of them.
Okay, two questions.
It's just like with Pizzagate. Back in 2016, I was trying to bring up, hey, Pizzagate, you care about this kind of thing. What about Epstein? He was busted a few years ago. Why don't you go after the real conspiracy? Not interested. They're not interested. That's a real example of something that had been dug up, that there's facts, court cases, everything, not interested. So the things that are really happening, they might go on for 20 years, but they come out too, and yet people want to ignore it. And it's like, that's what's really going on, is right in front of our eyes. We know the police are brutal to poor people. Why are we even debating it? Nobody doesn't know that. Believe me, the rich people know that the police are going to treat them nicer because they're rich. They know that. If they're pretending they don't know that, they're lying. And so we're just overthinking when we go into the kind of control they have. Now, they do have sophisticated, plans. Fucking, Nixon and who's that fucking guy?
You mean the English reporter?
The Jewish guy. Anyway,
Frost?
and Friedman, when they took over Chile, that's all a matter of historical record. And even at the time, we knew that they went down there and did that coup with Chile and helped them with the coup, and they didn't admit it, but it came out freedom of information 20 years later that they did, and the letters that they sent back and forth. So they took over a whole country. That country killed, I forget whether it was 1,000 or 10,000 people a year, and all kinds of horrible stuff. And they did it right in front of our eyes. The activists knew while it was going on and said, hey, this is what's going on, and everybody ignored them. So that's the real things are like that. Like putting those kids in cages, separating them from their parents. That's the real thing that's going on. The justice is right there. They're taking kids that are innocent and their parents who are legally seeking asylum. They're separating them and putting them in a concentration camp prison. And not even over 600 of them documented can't be reunited with their parents. We don't know who they are.
Yeah, and the whole
and that's happening.
Yeah, no, the women getting they're having forced hysterectomies, from the immigrants above Florida.
And this is a part of their New World Order plan. This is the kind of thing that their plans that they really do want to work on, and Stephen Miller's working on, and they're just doing it. It's not some secret that's done through hand signs or by you could not pull off making all of the world's scientists lie in unison. They're all in different countries. Some are communist. Some are, it just, when they all are wrong together, it's not a coordinated lie that's paid for. It's a social bias. When all the psychologists are saying being gay is a psychological problem, it's because it was a sociological bias. Sure. It wasn't because somebody paid them to say that. Even though there were people paying some of them to do studies that said that. But it's just more complicated, and science is changing its idea. Over time, you can build up data, and eventually they're like, okay, we can't. So they make mistakes, but it's not like the rich people have the puppet strings, because they're so smart. No, they're not. They're mostly a bunch of idiots. And working in the corporate world so much as I have, and a lot of corporate 100 companies, and I've worked for the corporate number 50 companies. They're not very smart. Okay, don't worry about it. What they got is a shit ton of money, and you get the second chances. You get to try 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, right? And then also they like values. Like you or me would try 4 or 5 times, and we'd keep we would never give in to trying to make it something that popular. You wouldn't try your art 5 times, see which one, sold better, and you wouldn't want to sell out. But they do. So give them the money, they get a multiple tries, and all they want is to manipulate other people, right? They don't have an inner thing they're trying to get done, and that's the whole formula. They're not smart, their plans aren't smart, they're a bunch of fucking idiots. There's no way they would pull off something like a global pretending there's a COVID germ, I believe. But I respect your belief, more than a lot of people that believe those theories, just because I don't most people, I think, are just absorbing it from a right-wing propaganda machine, and, I don't feel like that's what you're doing.
Well,
you're fine, your own analysis, your own, the triad, and your theory, so I respect that. But my view is just and again, I'm saying, to finish up with, even if I'm wrong, and they did pull this plan off, I'm inoculated of thinking that way because I think they're a bunch of idiots. And I'm not going to sit around thinking they're fucking super geniuses, because that's not what I've ever seen.
Right.
But I could be wrong, right? Because that's a bias.
Well,
but I don't think so.
See that it's not well. Okay, so if what's real is that they're giving hysterectomies to women and they're separating kids, and that's part of a plan, then the idea, if there is federal military authorization to forcibly inoculate every citizen in the U.S. or inhabitant, then that itself is just a single operation that has. And that aligns with all of the science. That aligns with the
I doubt that'll happen, though.
What's that?
I doubt that'll happen. I think what they're going to happen is there's so many people that'll want to get it, they'll have trouble getting it out to them. And by the time they all have it, I don't think they're going to feel the need to come make us all get it, because
I hope you're
they
right.
just need like 70% of the people to have it, and then we don't have to panic.
I hope you're right.
And maybe over the next 20 or 30 years, if it doesn't go away, they might force everybody to do it like they do with tuberculosis or whatever.
Yeah, like if you're born in the U.S. in a hospital or you don't have your shots, you got to get your shots.
Yeah, there's definitely some they've been cranking down. When I had my kids, I was thinking about not getting the vaccine. I don't like to take. I'm not that thrilled about it. I don't really want to take the COVID vaccine. I never take the flu shot, and because they're always inventing it every year. But it has statistically helped, and I did get the vaccine for my kids because you know what? It did eradicate polio. So I didn't believe in HPV. I was slow to do the HPV ones and stuff, but it's like, you got to take these case by case. You can't just say, oh, it's evil pharmaceuticals, even though they're totally evil. It did eradicate polio, and that was a real thing, and my grandparents' generation was quite prevalent. So I did it.
Right.
But I'm suspicious. I totally support the suspicious part, because they will try anything. For example, they would try a worldwide coup. I think Trump is trying to have a coup. They would try it, but it's not like it's not obvious. Like, for them to do something secret and pull it off, it's like, no way. They're not that together. Well, they want us to think that. They want us to think that their stupid Masonic lodges fucking summoned Bosley up. It's all bullshit.
Well,
it's a fantasy.
How about like a general idea? Like, generally, this is where we want Amazon to go, so let's invite Bezos to Bilderberg along with, like, let's say Elon Musk, or let's say, Zuckerberg. And let's just have a little gathering, a little powwow, right? And I'm just saying, like, generally, there could be things that are...
Well, they do that, though.
Yeah, they
like Davos. You know about Davos?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. That's my point.
But the thing is, Davos is, they have their little secret meetings there, but we get a lot of information about what's going on in Davos. We find out through the grapevine and through Bill Gates and what Bill Gates does the next year after he went to Davos. We find out, those guys are all going to go try to fight AIDS in Africa. But they're not. Oh my God, they also are talking about putting RFID chips in all the kids. Yeah, they would love to put RFID chips in everybody.
Well, what happens
if they do that? But we find out about it right now, and then they come and try to do it, and then you could come along and I'd be on your side and go, yeah, this is what they're trying to do. Fuck that shit. But that's not what happened with COVID, right? The talk about depopulation or any of these things about using the germs for that, this plan did not go down like that. This is not something that is separate from how it's seen. The things are always how they seem. What happened when, Bill Gates thought he would go change American public education is on the public record. People don't know it, but those that want to go find out, it's on the public record. So it's not a secret like he's trying to manipulate education. Yes, he's trying to manipulate education, but not in a way that ended up secret. You can find the information. You don't need to look. You don't need to decode Hillary's emails or something to find it out. And so, if you apply that to COVID, I just don't see how there's nothing where
How about the
reason we find out those other things is because the numbers and everything that come out of reality is reliable, and so you don't get a disconnect. When you get a disconnect between the numbers and their plans, it becomes clear what their plans did, that the plans failed or not. it all becomes clear. And with COVID, what's clear from the numbers is hundreds of thousands of people are dying in this country, even though we're only 4% of the world population, what do you think? We're 20% of the death.
So you don't think
that's a fact.
Trump's notion that he doesn't want the country to shut down, even now, like after the election, he says something like that. Do you think that is like structurally, economically, is it humanitarian to make that have that preference?
It's an economic thing, but Biden said the same thing.
Well, I mean,
if you're asking me personally, I don't want to shut the country down. What I want is everybody to have PPE, the government to provide PPE, including paper suits for people that might need paper suits mail delivered, so we don't have to shut down. I'd rather we were all walking around in paper suits for a year than shut down. And the problem is people don't believe any of the science. They don't realize that if we wore masks, it would save hundreds of thousands of lives, and then maybe we could accept the thousands that were going to die as a tragedy and not shut down.
But the first guy
go around spreading the germs, we're for sure going to shut down.
Okay, so that was your opinion, but that first video that I posted that got taken off of Facebook, that one where the guy was saying, you didn't watch it? Oh.
That's not what I was answering. I was answering a text thing.
Right. Well,
I didn't see a video.
Well, some guy basically said that, for those that are all pro-masks...
I watched a bunch of videos. Maybe I did watch yours and forgot that it was yours. I've been consuming a lot of this theory.
Well,
maybe I forgot. But I thought when I answered you with my curt little, yes, you're wrong, which I thought was really funny. But anyway,
a fractional point in that data was that the guy said you mentioned Sweden and how Sweden had no masks, no lockdowns, no mask mandates, and their case count is low, is mega low, and their death count is like our death count, supposedly mega low. And that's
our death count is super high, their death count is high, and their government is coming out saying they were wrong to do herd immunity because people are getting sick again in the second wave.
Well, and that I don't know. Like, meaning what you just said runs counter to what the guy was saying. Meaning that there's counter apologetics, and so to the extent and so put it this way. Let me just throw this out as a weird abstract like metaphysical thing that's personal to you in your life. Suppose that your daughters could foretell the future of vast aspects of humanity, and they were just getting a head start on it, right?
Well,
taking control in their own hands.
Well, my daughter died January 30, basically when all this stuff started to hit the presses.
Yeah. Well, and my point is that if you look
if you want to talk about the spiritual part, here's the thing. Right. Did I ever tell you so? I'm sure I told you, but when before June died, like 3 or 4 days, I do these visualization meditations sometimes. So I'm meditating, I clear my brain, but then I let an image come, right? Yeah. So I don't keep my brain empty. I just try to get it down to just so there's not all the fireworks, and then some will come. And I had this great one about, I'm on the hill, and the earth is changing, right? So millions of years are going by at a time or whatever. So a mountain's growing, and I'm standing on the mountain, and it's happening fast enough that it's hard to keep balance. But none of the trees, or there's no landslides. It's kind of, a dreamlike mixture of a time lapse, but everything's growing, right? And so it's growing, and I realize it's because there's a dragon egg, and that's what makes mountains grow, is there was a dragon egg, and when the dragon egg is ready to hatch, it pushes up, and it pushes the mountain up above it, and so this whole thing goes until I'm at the top of a mountain, and it's like Harney Peak, this place in South Dakota, where there's a beautiful mountain, you can climb up to the top, and there's a fucking spring, and it's the tallest mountain for hundreds of miles, tallest mountain all the way to Europe in one direction, in the other direction it's 100 miles to the Rockies, and there's a spring there, and I go in the spring and it closes up around me. I become the dragon egg. I flow out with some lava. I get a hatch, and there's a dragon. And then I'm dealing with this dragon for like 3 days. So like 3 days before my daughter died, I'm waking up. The dragon is a voice, a Japanese voice, because I thought this dragon was a European-style dragon. But this Japanese voice is explaining to me, okay, dragon's going to come, dragon spirit, and put it on like a suit. It's like a suit. It's a very big honor. And you know, I can prove to you how important it is. I can make you quit smoking. Just every time you feel like a cigarette, just imagine the dragon body, and it's like the dragon body's feathers, and I'm starting to realize, oh, this is an Asian dragon, not a European dragon. And I did it. When I woke up that day, I went to work, and when I wanted to go get a cigarette, and usually you just start driving, I just think about, then I stretch my shoulder with the feathers and feel them, you know, it's super realistic. And that lasted for like 3 days.
Well, wait. Did a cigarette show up or didn't it?
Well, I'm just saying, so I didn't smoke, and I was having these, not hallucinations, but this voice and this Japanese, you know, sensei, and I'm feeling like I'm wearing a dragon spirit. And then the third day, my daughter died. Then all hell broke loose, and I'm freaked out to the nth degree. I'm having hallucinations constantly, and a lot of them are these dragons. Now I'm looking up dragons, and I'm reading about dragons show up because they're the guardians of the gate between the world of the living and the dead. So a dragon means an opening of the world between the living and the dead. People die.
Right.
So then I had been totally summoning this dragon. Like, this is great. I quit smoking. It's a powerful feeling, and I don't care that it's the real dragon. I mean, I do things when I'm emotionally weak or whatever. I imagine being an albatross flying,
right?
Or a wood weevil, you know. And so I'm just like, okay, this is great. It's working. I'm feeling it. And then I'm getting scared because I'm like, did I open, you know, a gateway to the dead? Anyway, to finish the story, basically, in my mystical belief system, it's like my two girls were two dragons that are the gatekeepers between this world and the world of the spirit. And I can't figure out if they open the door, if June like opened the door and shut it, and it happened again, or it feels like, no, June opened the door. It was open for 8 years, and all hell broke loose. And then Claire closed the door, you know, and went through and closed it from the other side. And the thing is, if you think about it, how easy it is for me to reciprocate and believe in it. Like, remember 2012, the world was going to end.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it didn't end. It's like, I was always like, yeah, it did. And you know what I mean? And it felt very personal. Like, the whole world had this idea the world was going to end, and they were wrong. And it's like, no, they weren't wrong. It's just it wasn't about you. You know, which means very egotistically, it's all about me. The world's work. But anyway, so that's kind of my spiritual set right now. And partly why, you know, I feel like I'm finally recovering. Like I said, it was a parenthesis, you know, and that's where, like, the visualization of the parentheses is like a gate to the world of the dead, which is a beautiful, serene place, except for when it mixes with the world of the living, it's fucking chaos in the world of the living. And we did kind of have chaos.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear your story, actually. I'm glad to hear how you have mythicized sincerely the, a narrative for your daughters that way. It's interesting.
Well, I told that story to my cousin, and he was like, oh, you probably have rewritten it, right? Like, this is probably a memory you wrote for yourself after she died. You know, you retro-inserted the 3 days before you quit smoking, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, there's truth to that, because when you go check up dates, you'll be like, oh, it's 4 days, not 3. But because of my YouTube habit, I wrote a song. There's 2 songs up there about my dream that are just a few days before my daughter died. You know what I mean? I did a day called Pyrrho's Day 3 Nicotine Free.
Okay.
Like a day before my daughter died, which was 3 days of not smoking, which had happened because of this spirit. And I mentioned some of the things about it. And even when I'm not explicit to the audience, It's like writing notes. I mean, I know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So it confirms the memory. So I did not author that. This happened. Now, it was a hallucination. I'm happy to talk about it that way. But I had this revolutionary hallucination that allowed me to quit smoking cold turkey for 3 days. And that happened. That happened before my daughter died, you know, and then I continued to have these hallucinations and
wow.
You know, so anyway. But on the other hand, the summary would be that I'm not sure how I'm doing with them. Like the two spirits of my daughters are around. They're little miniature dragons. They fly around and they're a little bit rapscallion. And I'm like, I don't know. You're like a leprechaun. Like, I'm not sure if you're my friend or not. Maybe you're just assigned to me. But this is fucking what's with all the hard stuff. So,
well,
and then you asked about John, and I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, maybe there's a spiritual connection. You know, you're the sadist, you're the masochist.
I'm not going to deny that. That training, I guess, or part of that art form. And I put you in the friend category. I don't, as far as the innards of what makes you tick compared to what makes me tick, or anyone else, like that's kind of, I think that's more individual.
Well, it's funny because you're talking about like your interaction with the reality and what counts as hinged and not hinged and stuff like this. My attitude about that stuff is that, so it's ironic, but because for those of us that this is true, according to me, it doesn't, well, here's what I'm saying. I feel like for you, the veil has been pulled back.
Sure.
You and me can talk on the other side of the veil or through the veil or whatever. There's a bigger clarity of what's going on with this world that we actually live in, how humans actually experience it. So in a way that sounds like, oh, that's more safe. But no, because when you do that, the world is fucking crazy. So it's like the commute thing. It's like the world's absurd and you pull back the curtain, yeah, you can end up like Gary. So Gary also is behind the veil, but he's like, it's given him a psychological problem. He didn't survive the transition. So, he's got, it doesn't make you more sane, sadly, because you're dealing with more potent and even terrifying information.
Yeah.
So we're all like going through all this weird shit. But from my point of view, I don't want to talk to people that are just behind the veil. It's boring. They're living they're in a fake life, as far as I can see.
The Sufi says that they're owing to those that teach them how to die. And
what says that?
Yeah, I think it was a Sufi.
Oh, Sufi. You cut out a little bit. Sufi. Okay, I got it.
But and I find that like that you're supposed to die to yourself, and such that there's an empty spot that you're able to fill in with the new self. And this also feels though like a reoccurring cycle, even if the drama of it seems exterior now.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what do you mean? Wait, stop right there. The drama seems exterior. You mean like the drama that you've experienced, or that I would say I've experienced as an emotional, like wild land that's really inside us, and that I think's inside everybody, but some people have it well walled. Okay, so that drama looks like it's happening in the real world, like Trump and that, all this battle that we're having in the public. That's an interesting point because, we can't know. Well, I'm still on that threshold sometimes where I believe everybody's mind exists, but it doesn't mean we're not in a dream world that somehow is like the external drama is actually happening inside me. Kind of a thing. Like there's ambiguity between the external drama and the internal drama.
The Muslims could say the greater jihad is internal and the lesser jihad is external. and
Interesting. That's not a thing.
and look at it in terms of not see, even solipsism I'm boundedly unbound to, right? Meaning I can't, like I'm a single behind the eyes embodied organism, same as I presume everyone else to be, and so therefore, I resist the idea that I'm a causal agent, but I think I'm part of the tide in some way, and
well, that's the thing about mystical quantum physics, right? Though, is that there's a solution where both are true. It's external; other minds exist, but because of relativity, you are like in a vortex where everything is filtered through, not your mind. I'm not talking about the psychological part, but possibly the reality part.
The Kobayashi Maru.
So yeah, it really is. So like when you're having an emotional distraught and a plane falls down that day, that maybe there is a relationship. I don't think we can know, even scientifically, even when I turn myself, I'm in my rational physics mode, I don't think we can know that there isn't that kind of connection. Because just the phenomena of consciousness, it physically looks like it's a connection of that sort. Like consciousness is the world made into your personal world. And the fact that there's a million different personal worlds doesn't make it less personal. Right? Having a customized thing doesn't mean it wasn't customized. It is customized. Everybody gets there. So it's weird because then what if we're all just in a mass hallucination? Like, we are all here, all of us that are watching these same events that are somehow intersecting common reality.
Well, that's why
we're all going through the same thing.
But that's why I want to go work at Neuralink, because if the Borg are all connected as one in some matrix sense, then perhaps it would be like an escape loop.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see, because it's those corporate worlds, the way he does it. Well, I mean, his one sounds good. But anyway, that's cool to try it.
It's a thought, I don't have the I don't have the background, but same thing with the running for president. I didn't have the background to run for president either, so what was I doing other than half cocky?
Because it depends what you apply for, because of course that'll be true, because also like literally having a corporate background. But I think most companies are more open to other backgrounds.
Well, they have
like a company like that probably does have jobs that are about visualizing the meaning of a cyborg future, right? As a part of their public outreach and their marketing, since they're going to have those departments, 10 years before they have a product, they're probably going to have a visionary style. You know what I mean? Like when the military hires comic book artists to think of futuristic weapons, they're trying to get a creative thing going. Mm-hmm. And so who knows? I think your biggest problem with them will be that it's the corporate attitude, like the part of them which is the ordinary corporation.
Well, I can mute to that. I've worked with corporations. I can reform fit even as a post-dead Sufi.
No, but I mean in the sense of getting through the gauntlet of getting selected. Once you're on the way through that gauntlet, halfway through you start to go like, shit, I don't want this, and then they, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what I meant. I mean,
I'm not going to be
the process of getting selected. Not that you couldn't work in that environment or don't even know what it is, but I'm just saying, in terms of whether you get a job like that or not, I think it's going to be more like whether or not there's a allergic reaction.
I'd have to report back to you on that.
What?
In terms of the aspects of why I did or did not get hired on to a company like that. Meaning, I think the argument will be found in the not the argument. I think the sales to get the job will be found in the cover letter, and then probably in an interview. And but because they actually hire 7% of their staff they want disabled, and so I qualify.
Interesting. No, but I mean when you're in that process, there's going to be a problem where you meet their corporate culture.
No, I know.
And it's like meeting a person, and if you don't like it,
well,
but you still want the job, if you're like, oh, fuck it, what? But you still want the job, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Well, on the other hand, it could be that there's a perfect match. I just got in a corporation where they had all these problems, and now they're trying to reform themselves, and it's like it's magic. It fits exactly. And I was nervous going into it because these corporations can be any way, but they're literally like people, and they're not all assholes. Well, they're all assholes, but they're not all like, you don't want to be there. It's really great, the people I'm working with and everything like that. So I'm not saying it can't work out at all. I think it's great you're trying to do it. But it'll be interesting. And I would think the main thing is not so much like you were saying, like, hey, you have been working for these kind of companies. I think it would probably more be like a personality thing.
Well,
like whether you get along with their corporate culture, because these corporations have strong corporate culture.
I could get fired really quickly for harassment or opening my yapper. But are you open to the fact that when you meet their culture, you might not like it? You might be like, I might not like it. This is an asshole. Well, then what I would do is that's what I was talking about. I think there's a high chance that this high money corporations, they just are so arrogant, and even when they're doing cool things, they're just hard to stomach. I'm telling you. My point was this: like, I already came up with a plan B, right? Which is, I apply at the Austin headquarters, and then if I don't get the job, I just sell art down there, and I use that as my reason to go to Austin. You know?
Well, there you go. That's a perfect city that I was talking about, a city that's fairly reasonable and livable, super cool, and appreciates creativity. That's what I was talking about. Well, yeah, dude, that's a good backup plan.
Well, it's kind of like trying to figure out where Joe Rogan's bunker is in Austin. You know, like, they're not just wearing their address on their sleeve down there. And yet their company's moving forward. And so the point is if you get an in within a company, like, see, you're pigeonholed into programming. I could work in areas that they're not even hiring yet. Meaning, like you said, you pretext everything 10 years ahead, meaning you put your resume in and see what's up.
These guys often hire artists and not just to do art, but also to do art. But yeah, to visualize where they're going with something so futuristic, like you were saying, you're interested in, is based on having a vision of where this is all going, or creating a vision of where it's all going, and they definitely do that.
Yeah. I mean, it could be.
That's why I wanted to go to Tesla too, because even though it's electric car that's kind of ordinary now, this is like 9 years ago, and it's like, hey, that's gonna be cool in the future.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. Yeah.
Well, and I even thought,
I like programming. I'm pigeonholed in it. So right now, I'm not actually programming. I just draw diagrams, basically.
Oh,
here's how it should look.
Oh,
make that happen.
It's an enviable history that you have. Meaning in the 3D world, because you can design things if need be.
Every day I thank my lucky stars, except for my daughter being dead.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky, I was saying. So, yeah.
Well,
I feel like I worked for it, but it turned out good. The last 6 years having my own company, because working for your own company, it's like, I can have a bad experience with a client. I get fired. I'm the fucking president.
Yeah, I know, but do you...
It's my company. I'm pretty sure even if I fuck up, I'm not going to get fired.
Well, anyone can file a company.
Yeah, well, they all should, man, because it feels much better.
Yeah.
Ending a relationship with an employer when it's just like, oh, you don't want me to do more work for you? Okay. I mean, I haven't had bad experiences. I've been doing good. People mostly like me. But I mean, when it goes into, like when I was an employee, I always felt like, if you want to do a good job, you can't worry about getting fired.
Yeah.
So you just do whatever and you take whatever result. And it's like, but as running my own company and working for someone else, it works a lot better because I can actually have that attitude of I don't care if I'm fired, and yet I'm super diplomatic and stuff. Why? Because I have a service attitude. Instead of judging you because you're an idiot and your boat is sinking and you won't fix it, you've hired me to helicopter drop onto your boat.
Exactly.
I'm just going to go fix it. I'm not going to judge.
Well, I just boiled eggs today to go feed homeless people because the homeless people can't go get eggs themselves without robbing a damn grocery store.
Yeah, that's good. How often do you do that?
Well, I just kind of start. I don't know, like a couple days ago.
That's a good for you activity. Good for them, of course.
Yeah.
Good for you, though, too.
Yeah, and there's I can buy like. Yeah, I'm pretty low budget guy, and my but I can buy really like 5 dozen eggs for less than $4, and I'm like, okay, that's a deal. And then I can give out a few of them to each person if they want them, and they go pretty fast.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought like try to set up some sort of coalition in that respect. Even my very first Bitcoin notion, like, well, I'm going to write a Bitcoin or a contract, or I want it, blah blah blah. Just kind of thinking about it, had to do with like a poverty coin or something like that. Trying to figure out, and maybe if the inoculation is putting some sort of tracking device, or we're all becoming androids, whether we like it or not. The inoculations do have this microchip in it or whatever, right? And so the whole idea is like you said, surfing. It's like figuring out which way do you want to take the wave in, and at the same time, I had a point and then I lost it. Yep, at the same time.
That happens to me all the time.
Well, you're pretty good at tracking the topics. I just shoveled down a plate load of spaghetti.
Keep a couple extra topics that I forgot earlier that I remember, and I just keep those, and you shift into that shit. People don't notice. Like, I brain fart all the time.
Well, and the meaning, but that's why I asked you. Like, well, what is it that you wanted to talk about per se? Because
usually I do have something, and when I call, I'm often like, let's see what Mike did. But this time I just like, I haven't seen you much, and we're going to do this online stuff. If I had a topic, it's just like, let's get the mic work there and do it. Because I think we could do good conversations. I will enjoy it. You will enjoy it. And I think that we can actually, people need the veil taken back. And it's not like the veil is convincing them about your idea of the COVID or mine. No, it's not about that. It's about accepting, even thinking about this thing. People have so many topics just cut off. You and I talking, it's like there's nothing on nothing unallowed. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think people need to see it. I think it could be monetized if you want, but on the other hand, it's also, to me, it's a very interesting hobby. I'm driven to do this public discussion. So when you and I have a swap, have one, it's like, it's win-win-win. I'm fine with, hey, let's try to do it every Friday and monetize it. That's fine, but I don't really care, because if the monetizing ruins the fun part, I wouldn't want to do it. But I'm not worried.
If you knew how to monetize it and wanted to monetize it, I would be fine with that. My thing is
to monetize it, because that'll make it sustainable, right? And what about retirement businesses when I'm 70? That's something I still enjoy to do. So I think monetizing it makes sense. But I'm also saying it doesn't matter. I want to keep the dialogue going, and I think you and me, and Barkle, I think is an example, that some people are very productive to having conversations with real information, and it doesn't matter what any of our particular opinions are, because the point is that we can have an exchange of very different ideas without this baggage of whatever you feel.
Well, and a lot of it is just who you talk to. Well, if you want to go down, a history of other people, and I get it, is that this flat earther that I've known in the park for a while, he's like, I like you because you find out that I'm a flat earther and you don't shun me away as a crazy guy. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I don't. So what else? What's on your mind? What's happening? And but
Exactly.
it's that same
That's
thing.
you and me's sympatico part is like the boundaries, the agreed upon boundaries of society are such bullshit. You know?
Well, and do you think
boring bullshit? What they want us, how they want us to think, is just boring bullshit.
do you think
we're not the only ones that think so.
The N word should become decriminalized? Meaning, give me the arguments on both reasons.
Probably it should, but I just don't give a shit because, like, after Trump, here's the thing: I've had too much sympathy for they're just in the past, or this, or that, or they have sympathy. It's bleeding heart, which is great. I'm still a bleeding heart, but it also I don't want a unilateral thing, and so it's like, you know what? Fuck those guys that want to say that word. When they're all gone and they're not voting for Trump and they're not, putting kids in cages and shit, we'll all be able to say it again. I went through a period in my life where I would not say it, and I realized, oh my God, I can't say this word. So, I said the word out loud. I said I've used it in conversation. I think I've used it in my videos, just to break a barrier. But I don't need to keep using it. But I don't want to. Yeah, I don't feel good. Like, forbidden word. Fuck that.
Well, what do you think of? I mean, I think hate speech laws accompanied hate or hate crimes, and I think that there's a certain price to pay by saying some X group gets this use without social repercussion, and then there's Y group that doesn't get access and if they do get access, they're going to have social repercussions. And so I sat there, but then I thought, well, the history of what the threat of that self-categorization meant seemed as if the dichotomy and Western colonialism relative to slavery, black and native slavery, or you could go down any avenue you want with regards to this, but the whole point is like a historic classism that is mixed with ethno-racism, and that itself is kind of like brought through like American black people that go over to England, give them more of a pass if they use it because they're also calling each other cunts all the time. Anyway, the point is that
the cunt word is a very interesting thing there, just because it's so different in America.
Well, it is,
yeah. The UK, the meaning of it, even though it comes to the same exact etymology, you can just see how different.
Well,
it is.
But
it's not uncommon to use it in America, right? Except for it's harsh. It's like the N word. I mean, especially when I was younger, if you were cunt, it was like. It's like bitch wasn't hard enough.
Oh, I know, right.
And in the UK, it's like somebody will get pissed off being called a cunt, but it's just kind of like calling someone an idiot.
But it's all,
get pissed off, but it's not like a bad word.
It's almost a term of endearment, just like the black people. It's a term of endearment within the groups. And
thanks for that gift, you cunt.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's quite laid out like that, but
because it's kind of like that thing where you have the insult French. And my grandma had that kind of sense of humor, and but it's softened enough that it's like like in my example, it'd be like, oh, you make me look bad, giving me such a good gift, you cunt.
Yeah.
But
it is an interesting phenomena, though. I mean, but these are the nuances and the affectations on language that are these little entanglements or entailments that it's so weird when you're feeling like less than guarded. You're able to blossom out, meaning language is the last thing I think an individual soul that wants to express something should feel self-repressed in such the same manner, like at the same time that I don't like the idea of the cultural systems going through a huge collapse and upheaval and resurrection or whatever's going on, meaning as much as I don't want Okay, so I want see. I had the thought, and then I got blinky on my map there for a second. But the whole idea was No, go ahead.
So I just had an idea. Like, if we wanted to have a show where we did it regularly and there was a topic, kind of a little bit podcasty, I think the subject you and I could always talk about, and actually we could talk about anything starting from this, is language, like language analysis. Because when you mentioned that, I don't know, I've been just thinking about, like, what is the compatibility and like what we want to talk about. From my side, a big part is language. The way you analyze language, and I analyze language, it would be a good topic, because the other thing is, if we had a podcast, it's like, every week and it's always language topics, it could be about anything, right? Because language just means, like, well, how do you talk about politics? How do you talk about your feelings? How do you talk about the news? How do you talk about, you know what I mean? Every subject, the real subject of every subject is, how do you talk about it?
How do you talk about it? Right. No, and I do agree with that.
You have a lot of ideas always on that. Like, you always have a lot of lexical and grammatical and sort of structural ideas, maybe related to geometrical interaction about language.
I'm still upset that the period comes at the apostrophes lie outside of the period at the end of a sentence. I think, depending. Well, it could go on the outside or on the inside, depending on what you're trying to suggest with the statement. Meaning, it's on the inside, But if the clause itself is independent of this, meaning it's the meaning of the sentence, but the context has nothing to do with the sentence structure, then the period goes on the outside of the apostrophe. Meaning, the very grammatical rule set, the formalization that is kind of like attempting to clamp down not only on people's behavior, but upon what is considered like right and wrongness, to the point where what I was going to say was, I still think people should be able to walk around naked, but I don't think that they should. I don't want all forms and rule systems and all scheduled systems to just fall to complete shit. And the COVID is justified as the scapegoat. And I guess I am cycling back to say, I think the drive to argue in favor of a herd immunity argument in order such that, if in fact the death count is, the numbers are significantly low, that the idea of pressing forward in this manner should only be for those that not the government deems like at risk, but for the individual, for the government to make everybody aware, like, if you're of this age group, you may be more at risk of catching this and dying, and therefore allow the individual to get means and monies and ways of being protected around those individuals. Everyone else, and it's kind of a classification, right? Meaning that I don't personally believe that my breathing common air with a something that goes through masks, if it is truly airborne beyond mere spit lengths, if it is truly airborne, then and it is truly smaller than any reasonable masks can lower, meaning that it's not about the length of your sputum, it's about the expression of exhaling itself. If exhaling itself is murderous, and that our species now is going through this, then the species itself, I believe, should suffer it. Meaning that I'm arguing for the virtue of open interplay at, like, go out in public at your own risk notions. And meaning, I like the idea. I like the idea of states letting loose on regulation and then closing on regulation. I like it because of the contrasting Swedish model and the New Zealand model. and so forth. Meaning, I don't like, in order to argue the opposition point is to me a type kind of like philosophical centrism that I like. Meaning, I like the idea that you can take opposing sides and bevel them up, and so that there's a center down point. The apex is the bottom of a pyramid, or meaning a upside down pyramid, so that the poles become, you can make something common between the two. Any comparison, flu and pneumonia, right? And then you compare data, but to me it's not two different things. It's the same thing. If you think that the way in which this whole develop plastics, sell plastics, push masks, if you believe the numbers, if that's the narrative that these bumbling idiots have fed you and you believe it because it's bonded isomorphically, paralleled itself with science, then that is what you believe. Now, when I say it's a case of bad science, it's because I'm listening to dissenting views and dissenting claims, and they seem as if they're coming in, but at the same time, kind of like even the Biden election, like the idea of voter fraud. Like, okay, so if I asked you, hey, could you cite more than 3 major cases of voter fraud right now? Right? Like asking you to formulate an argument against, let's say, Biden, right? That he's the president-elect, in fact. If you were to formulate an argument against the president-elect, how would you go about it? Right? I assume you would base it on voter fraud.
Yeah, but it's not. You can't. There's not enough. There's too many votes for it to be voter fraud issues. But you mean as a hypothetical, I guess.
So in fact, so you think there's too many votes for it to be against voter fraud. So I'm asking you to argue against something you believe, which is, it would be like to appropriately stillman your opponent's argument from the point of view of your opponent. You know what I mean?
What I'm saying is, right. So obviously, the argument, what other argument would there be from voter fraud if people actually voted for Biden? The only argument would be voter fraud. So then in that situation, you would argue
incidences of voter fraud. So if I said, have you heard of 3 instances of voter fraud that you would think were perhaps significant in this election? If you said, No, and the thing is, it doesn't matter. The 3 doesn't matter. It matters the total number of votes. Right? Sure.
They do recounts, they adjust numbers, and they're usually like dozens of votes. And if you recount it again, it'd probably be different by half a dozen again, or whatever. These things, the numbers don't come out.
I'm talking about like voter machines, or people paying for votes, or the mail coming in late, or predating, or post-dating mail in areas,
but
or
the problem there,
I'm just saying.
The real problem there is that the states get to decide how they certify votes. So it's actually up to the states to decide that.
But let's say though that like right now, would you be upset if there were unbounded delegates or electors that voted and made the vote go towards Trump?
Of course.
You would be upset at that.
If there was, I would be mad.
Well, even if it was within their
unbounded electors at all.
But no, there's tons of unbounded electorates. There's states that bound their electorates, and there's other states that don't bound their electorates.
Well, they're mostly laws now against stateless electors.
Well, you say that, but
it doesn't matter. But
I'm just saying if
most states have laws now, but
you say that, but I don't know whether you vetted that because there's plenty of states that are unbounded. But anyway,
20. You said 20?
I didn't know. I didn't give an amount. I'm just saying of.
Plenty. You said plenty.
Plenty, yes, plenty.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
meaning if those states, let's say,
they usually don't ever vote that way, but yeah, it's up to them. They're allowed to have that. If that was the state rule, sadly, that's how this country works. It's
right,
up to the state
so then Trump could perhaps be elected if, let's say, Michigan, Florida, Ohio, and Arizona or Nevada, let's say any 3 or 4 of those states decide their electorates, supposing those were unbounded, I don't know. But if they were, and they went ahead and they said, no, Trump's our president, then there would be a new, like legally, they would be correct in allowing Trump to be president.
Sure.
Yeah. And then you wouldn't have a gripe then. Then you'd go like, well, let's just get that fixed. No, you'd have a gripe. You'd have a gripe.
Against legal things all the time,
yeah, I mean, you'd have a gripe, but meaning you wouldn't have a legal gripe. You'd just have a gripe. If it was legal, and that's what they did.
True, because there's legal avenues to complain about things like that.
Yeah.
Our laws are in conflict, so as long as you can find another law that's prosecutable, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's what I meant by...
There was one legal answer doesn't mean you can't fight it with a different legal approach. You just need a new legal argument.
Well, I'm just saying, like, what happens, because you said, well, in 5 years down the line, we're going to find out, you know, that about the coronavirus. Well, what happens if 5 years down the line we do find out that this was the most overinflated, wrongly processed coup against Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump, in fact, you know, did win this, and that an autopsy showed this, proved this, carried the narrative. You yourself then, 5 years from now, might find it a compelling argument, but still say, fuck that, that's bullshit, I was there. And that's my point, is that if you bring everything down to a solipsism, then everyone's political view about any particular topic, like if you and I went topic to topic, we already found disagreement, right? And so I think as much agreement as people have, if all they have to do is just keep talking about something until it comes down to like a memory of something that can't be checked, and then they're indefinitely going to have disagreement, and there's no correcting or supposed third party. It's like the people that say, "Hey, look at how Wikipedia is changing this," or you know, they're not allowing this to be changed, this data, and they're wrong. Like people that have contentions against Wikipedia, right? It's like meaning that they've become so bureaucratic or put into this position whereby they then now bureaucratically have to control certain definitions, so they don't have like a fuckload of margin errors of dissenting views, which is really what they should do. Like every Wikipedia page should have a section for all dissenting views.
Well, it's on the top page.
Well,
you remember how Wikipedia started was the way that, first of all, it started with just going to be PhDs, and then that startup didn't work. But when they democratized it, they published, you know, the philosophy basically of what writing from a neutral point of view meant.
Yeah.
And they required that to be done. Now, it's not necessarily perfect, but I think that's why Wikipedia has worked. So now we have a problem of they're so old that some of this idea of what is neutral, it does in fact become restrictive and authoritarian, and it's not neutral.
Well, and
what are you going to do? I think, what are you going to do? Look at everybody else trying to control content. Well, Wikipedia ended up way more neutral than anybody else did. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's part of it's an issue of an imperfect solution. There are no perfect solutions. So.
Right.
Which, do you ever try to edit Wikipedia and run into that? I've read articles about it. I've never really edited Wikipedia. I did edit one time, I think, or something.
No, I tried to also.
Plus, I go to the Wikipedia, and I love to look at Wikipedia talk pages and see all the bitching and griping that goes on in there. It's very revealing.
Oh.
And there's a lot of the controversy does, you know, show up in there, but not really. You know, it's not like the dissenting opinions get their space in the talk page either, really. But you can see the griping, and it's fascinating.
So what are you working on now? It sounds like you got a program going on now. Like
I've started Rocket League on my computer.
Oh, God.
It's a game where you play soccer with a big giant ball that's would be like 6 or 10 foot in diameter, and you have cars. And you play soccer, trying to hit the ball with the car. It's amazingly great.
Oh, wow.
And they just give it out for free. So.
Wow. See, I probably need to play more games just in general because I don't anymore. And I'm like
I just started. Yeah, I got a Windows machine a couple of years ago, and so finally I slowly got some games so I could play with my cousin. And this game, you can play with people on the PlayStation, right? So I started playing it, but we actually haven't played yet, but it's really fun. I like games where you do like parkour and ninja and artificial physics. You know, I don't like going up, down, and then it just plays some fancy move. I like it to be like physics.
Well,
this one's great.
Speaking of physics, why don't you
must be here in the control?
Speaking of physics, why don't you tell me what you think of Gary lately?
Yeah, I'm still watching him.
Oh, really?
But not as much. You know, I don't finish all the videos, but I'm sad about it, frankly.
Just because
science denialism is just, I'm sad about it.
Well, I was telling this guy about Gary.
I can't even talk to him. I can't even criticize him because it's at the point of I don't want to be the guy that takes his one dream away.
Well, no. I was telling this guy. I said, so great people do this weird maneuver, right, where they come up with something really great, and then when it isn't exposed as great, soon enough, what they do is they formulate a falsity, and they run with that falsity as a tangent to what they got right, you could say. And so I was telling the guy, I said, so Gary, because he knows Gary also, I said, so what Gary does is Gary's antinatalism is his piece de resistance, and the physics thing is his big lie. It's like it's what he's putting forward wrongheadedly in order to make antinatalism more accented upon future review.
But he's just distracted from it.
Yeah.
He hasn't helped antinatalism. I thought when you were starting that, I thought maybe you were going with the fact that an idea of maybe he went with this faux position that to distract from being able to be criticized about his real position. And as a result, he gives up his conviction on the real thing, basically.
Well, or maybe he's jealous of me for denying gravity. So he had to invent his own physics, so I'd be jealous of him.
I feel guilty sometimes because I feel and then I feel well, it's not about me. But that he argued with me about physics, and the reason he got into physics was from arguing with me about physics. And then he got obsessed with it when in reality he has much better contribution. He can be talking about local politics or RRV too. It's not just antinatalism that maybe has some meat on the bones.
Yeah.
He's got some good intuition or whatever to positions that are important to communicate even. But and so I feel the first time he ever banned me was because I tried to correct him about the speed of light. And it was 5 years later, and he's making a big point of it all. And it wasn't just me, but all of us Stan, Kaz, and Gorkles, probably you, Professor Anton, anybody, whether they talk about physics or not, it was just strike against, those of us that, I don't know, whatever, his attitude.
Yeah. No,
Against the poets, that's what I guess I was trying to say. He's trying to strike back against the poets.
Yeah. And do you think that that's why he granulated everything into particulars and pressure of atoms and quanta? He's looking at it in terms of full materialistic.
I don't know. I don't have a theory. I don't see the metaphor there because on the one hand,
it's not.
There's a bunch of those guys that just think that it's more common sense not to believe, the woo-woo of quantum. So that's a part of it. But then his system isn't exactly, common sense. It's not like you can see little red and black. You know what I mean? His system is just as abstract with just as weird mathematics. And it just could be true too because, it's just as weird as the other systems. But it's not like he's really created a non-weird system. So I don't know what it
so
means
you think
on that level.
you do think his system is coherent then, or do you think it's got
No,
necessarily?
it's not.
Okay, just check.
It's self-contradictory. He contradicts actually even himself, I think.
Well, in what regard? Be very specific and concise if you can be. To just give me a quick. Why is Gary wrong?
Self-contradiction?
Well, about anything about Gary's physics system being incorrect, because at first it sounded like you were granting over some credence. Like, well, who's to say?
Well,
He's got a system, and
for example, mostly of his contradictions, I guess, come in how he criticizes other scientists. You know, like he has no qualms going, you don't have the math for that. You can't create this pattern with your equation. That's not science. And he's like, he's got no equation.
yeah,
He's not even trying to do that yet. So that's a contradiction, you know. So, and to me, though, I haven't been able to see what the metaphor of his particular system might mean, which is an interesting thing. I'm going to start watching with that in mind, actually. But I always just think back, you remember before his dad died, I don't know if you saw the videos where he did this, but there was a couple, you know, a big part of this was, my dad doesn't like the way I went, and he was kind of the scientist type, and maybe I can impress him by, and to me, that was just like, because I'm looking at him going, look, if I say maybe you are right about physics, then you're right about how the physicists are not fair-minded.
Most few businesses need up to $9 billion,
If they were fair-minded people, it would take you 20 years. Einstein took 20 years to convince scientists that he wasn't nuts, and everybody didn't agree in the end even then.
Yeah.
So there's no way you're going to get a Nobel Prize. You know, your reward will have to be that, you know, 20 years after your death, people go, this fucking crazy guy was right.
Gary might be in death denial.
It made me feel really fragile, like Gary was fragile, and I never thought of Gary as fragile.
No, because he's
and
not.
And I realized because I thought he was fragile, wasn't fragile, I said whatever I wanted, and now I'm like, no, maybe I pick on a guy that's fragile.
Well, but the point is this.
I can't talk to Gary anymore.
Gary has death denial, so he thinks he's going to live to the age of Yoda, and by that time, in 900 years, he will have gotten his proverbial prize.
You really think he has
I think he thinks he's
a death denial?
I think he's gonna. Well, I don't know, but I mean, I think on the surface, probably not.
That, but I could see that.
But meaning if
capable of a literal thing like that,
yeah, like
he wouldn't mention it because he's not crazy enough to think he should mention it, but he could believe something like that.
Well, I bet he will say, "You grow old and you fucking die." Like he would say that, but I think he himself might think, well, I'm gonna, I haven't counted all that. I'm gonna grow to 120, and on my 19th birthday, I'll get the Nobel Prize.
Well, remember back when his big deal was virtual reality, which is another subject he'd be better off talking about.
Maybe.
He'd be ahead of the thing. But do you remember when that was his solution to things, of the life being bad, right before we all found out the word antinatalism, or at least I did?
Oh.
Do you remember his virtual reality thing? I think you were around then. But
I was probably around then.
Like, he had an idea, and we would argue about, like, Hitler could go ahead and kill a bunch of virtual Jews. And I was like, I don't want to pay for Hitler to have a virtual Jew killing playground. But but part of that was the immortality, right? The uploading yourself to the net concept. Like, hey, if you can have virtual reality and have all this, who knows? Maybe they copy you in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. I think there definitely in his personality is a little bit of of that concept.
Well,
personal immortality, a little god, like a guy that thinks he's a god, but thinks the gods aren't perfect or anything, like a Greek god.
Right, but do you think the thing is it's kind of like the margins are still that he does, like he's inculcated in Western religion and enough to be able to deny it. And so there is the idea of trying to figure out what poetic lines could he speak that would make him seem like as close to an approximation of religion. Where when Anton they got in that argument saying, well, You're religious. Don't you think you're religious, Gary? And he goes, I'm not fucking religious. Right? And he fought at the idea that he didn't even want to be titled or registered or even sideways backed into categorized as religious in any respect of the word, right? And yet at the same time, the idea of what it means for the most grounded pragmatic way is once you die, that's one death, and once humanity has forgotten you, that's the second death, right? And so it's that idea that I think that's probably where he's coming from. I mean, if I can be most honest,
because besides the dad thing, the physics, he has said this, is a legacy thing to avoid the second death, at least, like backup plan.
Well, and the thing
I think you're onto something there, at least like metaphorically in the structure of his topic choice and whatnot.
One of my most recent videos, I'm playing drums and I'm kind of singing, just going haphazard, and I basically say something to the effect as, the idea that all of your memories on the net or in life, analog leftovers, even digital leftovers, you can be edited out and dropped right out of having any significance in any other future legacy of even your existence. Meaning, it is possible if Wikipedia, if everything goes digital and databases are swiped and bought and sold or erased or given purposeful viruses or glitches, then I do think it's possible that certain records are lost. Even in a solipsistic universe, it does come down to the idea that if all humans were gone, would the moon rotate around the Earth? And it's like, what would be a moon? You wouldn't even have anyone to corroborate what an object permanence or object coherence was. Meaning,
I give you that idea if you mean all animals were dead, because I think a rodent would be sufficient. But I think it's true. Without a consciousness, we don't know that information even collapses.
I'm just saying.
We know our observations are because of the consciousness, and it wouldn't be that way if there was no consciousness. There would be no collapse in quantum mechanics.
Well, I'm just saying, if there's only a rat left, then I don't think it's going to remember Gary's dad.
What's your opinion on Anton, sizing up? When I was talking about seeing behind the veil or not. I mean, what's your assessment of Anton's actual power level as a thinker?
Oh no, I
think it's pretty weak.
I think he's running some good, he's using some scaffolding from authors that he's read. I think a lot of what he says is
he's
kind of
like. Tour guide. That's what I think.
You think he's a poor guy?
He's a tour guide.
Yeah, he's like a tour. He is like a tour guide. But if you read his book,
through a mildly interesting philosophical museum.
I think he's co-opted into niceties so much that his notion, I don't think he doesn't. I think he does get down to some philosophical considerations that help your mind think on things. But I personally find Anton interesting because I speculate about his, being raised as an adoptive child and deciding not to have kids and wanting an academic wife and the fact that he teaches and that it is kind of like he's gotten to teacher attitude, but he had to publish. But I think a lot of his theology is based on probably historic abandonment psychology. And so I think he echoes authors or that have some common stem or there's some thematic narrative where it always seems like he's predictable in some manner, but in another way I like what he does.
I think he does that, but I think it's fun. When I was younger, I thought, he'd be original, and then I realized all my original thoughts weren't actually original, so fine. But so fine if he adopts other people's thoughts, but I think he just touches on them. He describes them. I don't feel like he's on the inside of those thoughts. And yet, because he cares, and I kind of like him because I also think he's sort of a try-hard, trying to be sincere, understanding enough to try to get some deeper understanding. And I like people like that. It's like, try. Try forever. That's great. And you're going to make it, and I'm going to turn out wrong because your trying is where the success comes from. But I don't think he's actually succeeded. To me, I think
that's how I am like an artist, though.
But on the other hand, he'll bring up, even these days, a random video comes up and he's talking to Matt. I'm like, well, this is a good part. Thank you for taking, he's a good member in the conversation.
Well, yeah, if you have a PhD.
I've worked in a lot of PhDs, but whatever. So that it's better than that. I mean, I think if I had my ideal community, like we were talking about, or I was talking about, where we curate or whatever, it would have a lot of people like him in it.
Well, I wouldn't ostracise him.
Mediocre, and he'd probably think I was mediocre or too flashy or whatever he would think, and that would be fair because that's the culture, that's the community. But my opinion still is that I always kind of think of him as like, what?
You got your degree.
One of the times I noticed your channel was when you did that 3-hour musical on him, and I watched the whole thing. Afterwards, I'm like, what the hell? I watched that whole thing, and somehow, I was captivated. And I thought, this is the perfect thing about him, because, I want to think about Anton. He's totally a conversant. He has a full role where I give all the thought, like I give all of you guys, But on the other hand, the best response is a satirical improv musical.
What? Right. Well, but after you were talking about, because that was one of my best videos. I thought that I went back though, and I purposely listened to my Gary's musical. Just because I was like, what came out of that? Because at the time it wasn't as clever by any stretch of the imagination, but it just, even today, I was downloading all of my YouTube videos, or I was hoping to. I was getting ready to open up a file, like a zip file that I downloaded from Google of my videos, because I thought, oh my God, with the new terms of service, maybe they're basically saying at our whim we can take down your shit. And I mean, it's always.
Is that a part of that?
Yeah, it's always been like that.
But on our non-monetized videos, right?
Right, and I just kind of thought, well, maybe it is time to consider another platform that isn't under government scrutiny to the extent that Google and Facebook and censorship itself is somehow coming down to roost, where it's like. Well, but you're not getting them, even if you were monetized, they don't even have the partner program anymore, is basically what they're saying. Just post here if you want, we're going to make the money.
Like that. I have it all designed out and everything, I just don't have time.
I just wish you would make a...
If you do a crowdfund for it or something, but I just haven't been able to do it, but I have it all designed out.
You have it all designed out? It's like a bit shoot?
Look, for here. So here's the idea. It's totally distributed, but here's the basic idea is, one, people could charge you so you could upload the videos, but you wouldn't have to, because you could put your videos on Google Drive or blah, blah, blah. There's a million cheap ways where you can just drop it in a Google Drive form, and I'd make the software use that. So you'd log into the software, it would look like it was one site, but when it looked up where the video was, and this is just because the complicated part is terabytes and terabytes of data still costs a lot of money to store. You do not want to store other people's fucking videos, and they're just going to be bullshit.
Well, because if somebody wanted to access it and it went viral really fast and it was pulled out of somebody's cheap home computer, off of Google, I guess.
Put it on Google Drive.
Yeah,
that's exactly my point. You put it on Google Drive, and they would be
I'm still recording your idea here. I hope it's not patent pending.
And no. If somebody else wants to do it, I want to use this thing. I was thinking it would happen. I've been at communities. I've never seen something like YouTube dominate that genre so long. Even after they killed replies, and it's no good for how we use it.
I know, God, I know. It's so stupid.
And how many have we tried to do? Everybody's tried to go. What was it? Not Venmo.
Well, this is why I don't understand you, though. Why are you still programming?
Blog Talk Radio. We tried a million of them. None of them. can we work? YouTube
Well,
is fucking lock that shit down.
what? Okay, so what is? Are you so pigeonholed in some type of programming that you building a program that did what you said, pulled off of Google Drives, and it was just a website that encouraged people to hire, here, just make videos and keep them on Google Drive and give us a and we'll pull them up and da 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 da. I mean, is that something
I would have
that?
a website.
Right,
I
I'm
would
just
have
saying.
a website that had a database that had all the URLs for all the videos.
Right.
That's no big deal. I already own AWS servers. I can do that without even spending any more.
Yeah.
And if you did have to buy it, it cost you $10 a month. You could have billions of videos in there. So that's not the problem. It's just having all the data. And am I pigeonholed? No, I'm the opposite of pigeonholed. I'm a full stack
Well, then I'm
developer.
just wondering why in that case do you why are you applying for any company instead of being an innovator and developing your own?
I have my own incorporated S corp.
Right, and so you're just contracting out. Like if someone if I said, hey, I got an idea, right?
Yeah, and I work on it. Like right now, I'm developing this full stack thing, and I'm going to bring in apprentices, and I'm going to have them do some open source work for me, and then after like 10 hours of that, then they'll be eligible for the apprenticeship program, which I'm modeling after an accreditable one. I'm not going to do all the details, but for example, it's a paid program. And, to build out my current stack that I have. And it's basically a bunch of kinds of code that I've been rewriting over and over and over and over.
But is it for what you told me?
I discovered like $1 billion market that my stack can already do that I didn't know was out there. So,
streamline that.
I am working. So doing what I'm doing is a way to get income, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have my own business. Because the thing is, when I worked for other companies before I had this company, so I had my own company one other time, but you actually usually have to sign an agreement that you can't work for anybody else for money, without permission at least. But I have an incorporation, it's the opposite. They can't tell me, no, I could get another paying client. I could sell my own thing. I could start a business, a website type business or whatever. And there's nothing they could even say. I wouldn't have to notify them, nothing. So that's actually part of the reason I am doing it this way.
Yeah.
But here's what happened. I'm always working on these ideas that I have, various ideas. The most recent one, it's semi-pro bono. I thought I could make money off of, which is a water survey app for helping people do water runoff survey, because we did that here and there is no app and it should have an app and blah, blah, blah. But what I realized is my own website was like 5-year-old technology that people don't use anymore, that I don't use anymore. So I realized I need to just work on that. So like for the last year, I've just been working on my website and my stack, because I realized I wasn't applying all of my job skills that I do for people I work for to my own stuff, right? Like I was just working on it, but not drawing a bunch of diagrams to clarify it. I was just working on it, but I didn't necessarily add everything to my stack that I would do, professionally. And so I realized I don't have time to create a video game or a YouTube response, or if you remember that I had that website where there was a map of all of us, and I put all of us on the map, and then it could draw connections. So like we were all little cities on a map, and when you replied to each other, it would connect them, and you could see who was talking to who in all the discussioneers. And I'd like to make something like that, but I spent decades always having a side project like that, and I accomplished a lot of cool things that I enjoy doing. But right now, last year and a half, I realized I just need to do that on much more practical things. So on my own website, my own stack, I'm taking the time to design it. I'm doing these Kanban boards, which is how you organize the work. And I'm going to bring in apprentices to help me build it out, so I'm not even doing all the programming myself.
Well,
that's the current plan.
I just want to know how much it costs to hire you out per hour, and how fast you can build me a Bitcoin Ethereum multi-level marketing system. That's very basic.
Well, I want to publish my rates. You say you're recording me, and I want to publish my rates, but this industry just doesn't work that way yet. So I can always tell you in private.
All right, I'll let you tell me in private later. But and then. But it is, I was trying to get Clown Cash off the ground, and that to me was my alternative co-opting of artists. And
tell me the Clown Cash idea. I don't remember. You probably told me. I don't.
Well, no, I had another channel, Clown Cash, and I don't even own that, as far as I know.
I was also curious about the poverty cash. That would be a good application.
Well, right. Well, and somebody else in India had developed a poverty blockchain that was, then I think they got it on an exchange. I'm not certain of. See, I'm always saying the praxis of the thing, where the blockchain is distributed to the real world, right?
What I would be interested in, Mike, is a new kind of cryptocurrency not based on the blockchain. Why don't we do that?
Well, no, there are those too, and those can be done.
Yeah,
and the point is,
how to do it. I know everything about cryptology enough to do it too. And
well,
what you
but
can do is, why not just create
hang on.
Coin? There you have 1 billion coins. Now,
well, no,
you just get to them.
No, that's already done. That's already done. That's called like Pi coin. It's not value. It's not exchanged, and there's more people using Pi mining off their phone that it pulls no data from your phone. It's not depleting your phone, and meaning there's so many different projects out there. My gig was. Like when I say application, I mean like RFID. Where does blockchain meet RFID? Where does RFID meet verification that you fed a homeless person and therefore you get credit, or a homeless person gets something from the network without being a part of the network? Right, and then how do you track that is the thing. So it'd be like a multiple verification, but at the same time there's also this idea of like, okay, how could we distribute electronics to homeless people that gathered, like phones with apps or something like that, such that you could shoot their QR code on the side of the road and give them coinage or something, anything that is like a quick transfer of some sort of digital asset to the homeless that they may find, if it's on an exchange, that they may find a value of. As far as
I think that's a great idea, and that if you could write that up, that's like.
Well, I don't know how to write shit in code. So that's the thing.
No. I mean, write up the idea, and you could get a crowdsource kind of, because like the idea of being able to give homeless people and like a QR code, and the fact that homeless people do have access to phones and computers enough that it could work, and then also people are like queasy about actually interacting with the homeless, and so it would make it like you're saying, like, I'm just driving by, click. I felt guilty for a moment. Here's $1. That I think that could have backing from a lot of people, right?
Well,
and then I don't think you even need a Bitcoin backing to that, but I still think it's interesting, right, to have some sort of currency representation where you're earning this coin.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do think is cool about Bitcoin is when you relate it to it. Like, I love IPOs because to me the idea of this coin is your company's stock. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that idea too, and that's why I thought it would have to be a coin.
There's a medium competitor that was doing that.
There's tons of people always doing the ICO and the IPO.
I remember there was a few years ago an IPO, and there, and the idea was you were getting the coin for doing the blogs and people, and basically it made sense because the real value of the coin is we're a going business. This coin is instead of having a stock.
Yeah.
And if you did that with, you can do it with social capital, right? Couldn't you have, the poverty coin, if it's based on your charity or whatever, is almost like you're making a physical residue material representation of altruism, of the nice part, right? So the value of that Bitcoin, the total market cap, is like how nice people have been.
But you'd have to link the date and the photo. Like if someone was going to say, "Hey, look, I gave these homeless people some eggs," like I'm going to go do later, right? Like, okay, I'm going to go do the whole idea is like, okay, so let's say everyone sends in a photo of them doing it. They get some coin for photo. How do you authenticate the photo to the person so you're not having someone like, "Hey, we just created 9 billion of the same photo and it switched out a pixel and now we're getting paid shitloads to hack it." That's why I'm like RFID is some sort of tracking. That's why it's like date timestamps or so. And then I just thought of like, meaning it's how does a coin meet the world is what the big issue is.
A homeless person on their request sign might have a QR code.
Yeah,
that would know, right? Because they ended up with the money. They ended up with the money, so the bank said it happened, But yeah, no, you wouldn't want to. It's interesting because I just mentioned that a watershed survey app, and the idea with that is I would expand it out afterwards to do all kinds of environmental surveys, including like broken window surveys. And then what I was thinking would be cool to make a social media app for people that pick up trash. So like if you're out on a trail, in a park or the woods or whatever, and you pick up trash, you can snap a little photo of it and, shareable, and you're getting social capital. But it's kind of the same idea, right? I thought we can have these apps that make us feel good. And the thing is, when you do that, when you take a little photo of something that you're going to get that gimme of your status, you get a dopamine shot. You get a little serotonin shot. Your brain goes, congratulations, check mark, here's some dopamine. You're also probably going to have a little higher status on Monday. Here's a little serotonin. And we go, hi.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
It's dangerous. That's a part of that dangerous activity. Yeah.
But if you give people those little micro drugs that the brain gives because of your micro accomplishments for good things, right? Because we got Madison Avenue and all the advertisers giving it to us for bad things. If we could get that for good things, that's another one of the things where 2 days later the world's a better place because people want to do good things and they want their little dopamine of checking off the checkbox if I did the good thing today. So yeah, that's a great idea though.
Well, it would be interesting.
Idea of blanking a Bitcoin. But I really think the Bitcoin, I like the ones that are not good. Crypto needs the blockchain. It's an interesting algorithm, but it's too expensive. I just go to these other kinds.
I don't know how. I may be more in tune with the crypto space than you are.
You know a lot more than me, totally.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, if you knew any of the new altcoins, like if you were able to spit them, and I would be like, I don't.
3 years. I'm 3 years since I checked in.
Yeah, well, I should. I have
a news group of programmers or a Slack channel, and I check up on their messages, but they're pretty sad. The engineers in blockchain are not doing so great.
Well,
Ethereum was not supposed to cap out. Bitcoin was not.
Oh, they hamstringed it.
But
that's all part of market pressure, though, too.
For the engineers.
I'm gonna stop the recording at the very least to see, in fact, if it did record, because there's nothing on the screen saying that it recorded. It's Pyrrho314.
I was going to say that earlier, that you should do that before we get off as a technical thing, because I would like to get it so we can have audio. And if you've got audio in OBS, then the problem is Discord. And if you're running it through the browser, you should just reinstall Discord. Don't worry about losing your channels. As long as you know your email that you signed up with and can get your email.
Well, I'm not worried about that. I'm not really worried about that. I was just,
Well, because I'd like to... No, but what I'm saying is, if you're recording as audio, then we know it's Discord. Like
right. Well, and I figured it was a problem initially between StreamYard for YouTube or YouTube itself or Skype or something else that I had opened that was trying to garner or fuck up something. And so I didn't know what could be. But anyway, all right. Well, that's Pyrrho314. I'm Dospook. I'm going to hit the stop recording, and if that works, great. Here we go. Ciao.